There is a quiet hum of dissatisfaction that runs beneath the surface of our modern world. Isn't there? It's a feeling that you can have everything you're supposed to want. The successful career, the comfortable home, the curated social media feed. And yet, you feel a profound sense of emptiness, a hollowness that no amount of external achievement can fill. You run on a treadmill of self-improvement, chasing after societal blueprints of happiness, only to find yourself exhausted, adrift in an ocean of information, yet feeling fundamentally lost. We are surrounded by a universe of shallow affirmations, told to simply think positive, to ignore the shadows, to silence the nagging voice of discontent. We are told that our inner chaos is the enemy, a wild beast to be tamed and locked away. But what if that's precisely where we've gone wrong? What if the very thing we've been taught to fear is the secret to our liberation? What if the darkness isn't something to be vanquished, but a fertile ground from which our greatest strength can grow? What if the cure is in the poison? This journey we are about to embark on is for those who are tired of the easy answers. It's an invitation to explore the wisdom of one of history's most misunderstood and radical thinkers, Friedrich Nietzsche. But this is not a dry philosophical lecture. I think of this instead as an audiobook for your soul, a guided meditation into the heart of a philosophy that was designed not for the classroom, but for life itself. We will treat Nietzsche not as a distant academic, but as a doctor of the soul, a man who diagnosed the ailments of the modern spirit over a century ago. We will unpack his most potent ideas and transform them into a practical toolkit for modern souls. You will discover that the infamous will to power is not about dominating others, but about the sacred, universal drive for self-overcoming, for becoming more than you were yesterday. You will learn that amor fati, the love of one's fate, is the ultimate spiritual technology for transmuting every obstacle into an opportunity. And you will be introduced to the path of the Übermensch, the Overman, which is not about becoming a superhero, but about becoming the most authentic, powerful, and creatively alive version of yourself. This is an invitation to stop running from your inner chaos, and instead, learn to dance with it, to harness its raw energy, and to become the poet and architect of your own magnificent life. We begin our journey by confronting the single most explosive statement in all of modern philosophy. A phrase so potent, so misunderstood, that it has echoed and distorted through the decades. A three-word earthquake. God is dead. When Nietzsche first declared this, he didn't whisper it. He thundered it. And the world has been trembling ever since. Now, let us pause here and take a collective breath, because to truly understand the power of this idea, we must first strip away the layers of misinterpretation. This is not a triumphant cry of atheism, nor is it a lament filled with despair. It is something far more profound. It is a diagnosis, and it is a declaration of independence for the human soul. When Nietzsche spoke of God, he was not merely speaking of the bearded figure in the sky. He was using the word God as a shorthand for any external system of authority that hands you your values, your meaning, and your purpose from the outside. Think of the gods you serve every single day, often without even realizing it. There is the God of public opinion, whose commandments you read in the comments section, and whose approval you seek with every post. There is the God of the corporate ladder, who demands sacrifice of your time, your energy, and sometimes your integrity, in exchange for the promise of a higher position. There is the God of tradition, who whispers that you must live your life a certain way, because that is how it has always been done. The God of societal expectation, who dictates what your relationships, your home, and your body should look like. Even in the world of spirituality, we create new gods. The God of the guru, the God of the best-selling method, the God of the one true way to meditate or manifest. These are all external sources of truth, External judges. External creators. They provide a map for your life. A set of rules. A predetermined definition of good and bad. And for a time, these maps provide comfort. They provide a sense of safety and direction. But Nietzsche's profound insight was this: these maps are not your territory. By following them, you will never discover the continent of your own soul. The death of God means that these external maps have lost their power. The ink has faded. The compass is broken. The old certainties are dissolving like sandcastles against the tide. And what happens when this structure collapses? At first, there is terror. Nietzsche called it the abyss. The great void, when you realize there is no ultimate authority to tell you you're doing a good job. No cosmic scorekeeper. No guaranteed meaning waiting for you at the end. The feeling is one of profound vertigo. You are untethered, floating in an infinite, silent space. This is the moment of panic. The dark night of the soul where you scream for a new God. Antidote. To give you direction. But this is where the spiritual warrior, the modern soul, must be brave. For Nietzsche knew that this abyss, this terrifying emptiness, is also something else. It is the ultimate blank canvas. It is a field of pure, undiluted potential. It is the womb of all creation. The death of the external God is the birth of your internal universe. It is the moment the cosmos turns to you, and with a silent nod, hands you the paintbrush and the chisel. It stops being the author of your story and waits for you to write the next chapter. This is the absolute core of all true manifestation, of all genuine reality creation. So many of us try to practice the law of attraction like we're painting by numbers on a canvas that is already filled. We try to paint a life of vibrant freedom, but we're painting over a thick, gray layer of I should and I have to. We try to manifest abundance while our subconscious is still secretly worshiping at the altar of a god called scarcity, or I am not worthy. It cannot work. You cannot build your new temple on top of the ruins of the old one. You must first clear the land. The death of God is this clearing process. It is the sacred act of identifying every single belief you hold that was given to you, not created by you, and having the courage to let it die. Imagine an artist, a painter of incredible technical skill. For years, he makes a fantastic living painting what his wealthy clients desire. He paints their portraits, their landscapes, their favorite myths. He is celebrated. He is successful. But every night, he goes home and feels a quiet nothingness. The god he serves is the market, and he serves it well. One day, he receives a commission for the most prestigious project of his life. But he finds he cannot lift his brush. The act of painting for someone else has become utterly meaningless. A spiritual dead end. He has a breakdown. He cancels the commission, locks himself in his studio, and for weeks, he just stares at a huge, empty, white canvas. This is the abyss. The terror is immense. The silence is deafening. His God, the market, is dead to him. But after the terror subsides, something new begins to stir. A line appears in his mind, a color combination he's never dared to use. It doesn't come from a client's request. It comes from a deep, quiet place within him. Hesitantly, he puts it on the canvas. Then another, and another. He is no longer executing a command. He is participating in a birth. The work that emerges is strange, powerful, and utterly his own. It is a reflection of his inner chaos and order. It is the first authentic act of his creative life. And in time, it is this work, born from the abyss, that makes him not just a craftsman, but a master. This is the journey that the death of God invites you to take. It is a call to stop being a craftsman of a life designed by others, and to become the master of your own. It is a terrifying, exhilarating call to radical responsibility. When there is no one else to blame and no one else to praise, you finally discover your own power. You are no longer asking the universe for permission. You are the universe, giving yourself permission. You stop seeking your purpose and you start creating it with every choice, every thought, every action. You define what is good by what makes you feel more alive, more powerful, more expansive. You define what is true by what resonates in the deepest core of your being. You are no longer a reflection of the world, and the world becomes a reflection of you. So as we stand here, at the edge of this vast, creativity, emptiness, a new question arises. The old gods are gone. The external motivations have crumbled. We are free. But what now? What is the force that pushes the artist's hand across the canvas? What is the energy that makes a single blade of grass push through the concrete? What is the internal engine that drives us to grow, to strive, to expand, to become more, even when no one is watching? That primal, insistent, creative impulse that lies at the heart of all life. That is the secret engine of your soul. And that is what Nietzsche called the will to power. If the phrase "God is dead" is Nietzsche's most explosive idea, then the will to power is his most dangerously misunderstood. The words themselves feel sharp, aggressive, even tyrannical. They have been twisted and corrupted, co-opted by the very forces of domination that Nietzsche himself despised. They conjure images of despots and conquerors, of a ruthless, brutish desire to control and command others. So let us be very clear from the outset. The popular understanding of the will to power is a complete and utter distortion of one of the most beautiful, life-affirming concepts ever conceived. Our task here is not to justify a toxic idea, but to reclaim a sacred one. It is to wash away the mud and filth of history and reveal the diamond shining underneath. For the will to power, in its pure, intended form, is not the secret engine of tyrants. It is the secret engine of your soul. It is the very pulse of the universe beating within you. To begin to understand it, we must first look outside of ourselves, into the natural world. Look at a single, tiny seed buried under a heavy slab of concrete. It has no conscious thought, no grand strategy. Yet it pushes with an inexplicable, relentless force, seeking a crack, seeking a sliver of light, until it shatters the pavement and emerges into the sun. That is the will to power. Look at a river, not as a body of water, but as an expression of intent. It seeks not the easiest path, but the path of least resistance towards its own expansion, carving through solid rock over millennia to forge a canyon, relentlessly expressing its nature. That is the will to power. It is the force that compels a tree to grow taller than its neighbors, not out of malice, but out of an innate drive to reach more sunlight. It is in the hawk circling in the sky, not just hunting for survival, but mastering its environment, expressing its own peak form of hawkness. All of life, in every form, is imbued with this fundamental urge, this drive not merely to exist, but to grow, to expand, to overcome resistance, and to express its unique form of power to the fullest. It is the universe's inherent bias towards more life, more complexity, more expression. It is the energetic current that flows through all things, what some traditions might call chi or prana or life force. Nietzsche simply gave it a name that was as strong and dynamic as the force itself. The great mistake, the one that has caused all the confusion, is to confuse this inner drive for self-mastery with the crude, desperate need for domination over others. The desire to control another person is not a sign of a strong will, but of a profoundly weak and fractured one. It is an admission that your sense of self is so fragile that you must leech power from the external world, from the submission of others, to feel whole. It is a parasitic form of power. The true will to power is generative. It flows from the inside out. It is not concerned with the person next to you, except perhaps to be inspired by their strength. Its entire focus is on the self, on overcoming the limitations of your own past, your own fears, your own laziness. The will to power is the voice inside you that chooses growth over comfort. It is the inner authority that says yes to a challenge and no to an easy escape. Let's make this tangible with the story of a marathon runner. Imagine her at mile 22. Her lungs are burning. Her legs are screaming. Every cell in her body is begging her to stop. An army of voices rises in her mind. The voices of comfort, of reason, of the herd. You've gone far enough. They say, no one will blame you for stopping. This is painful. Why are you doing this? This chorus of doubt is the voice of mere survival. But then, another force emerges. It is a deeper, quieter, more powerful current. It is the will to power. It remembers the months of training, the early mornings, the discipline. It is the part of her that wants to know what lies on the other side of this wall of pain. It is the drive to overcome this weaker version of herself that is begging to quit. When she pushes through that wall, when she finds a new gear she didn't know she had, that moment is a pure, undiluted expression of the will to power. She isn't defeating the other runners. She is defeating the part of herself that would have settled for less. The euphoria she feels at the finish line, the famed runner's high, is more than just brain chemistry. It is the spiritual ecstasy of a will that has successfully overcome its own limitations. It is the joy of becoming more. This is not some grand, abstract force reserved for elite athletes. You are engaging with the will to power every single day. It is the energy that stirs in you when you choose to get up and meditate, even for 5 minutes. When the warmth of the bed is calling your name, it is the force you activate when you choose the nourishing meal over the instant gratification of junk food. It is the strength you summon to have a difficult, honest conversation with a loved one instead of letting resentment fester in the silence. Every time you break a negative thought pattern, every time you learn a new skill, every time you push yourself just 1 inch beyond your perceived limits, you are exercising your will to power. You are aligning yourself with that seed cracking the pavement. You are becoming a conscious participant in the universe's relentless drive towards growth and expression. Living powerfully, then, has nothing to do with your job title, your bank account, or your influence over others. It is an internal state. It is the feeling of being the active, creative force in your own life. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can face internal resistance and win. It is the alignment with this upward, expansive current. When you are disconnected from this force, life feels stagnant, meaningless, and passive, like you are a victim of circumstances. When you are connected to it, you feel vital, purposeful, and engaged, even amidst challenges. The challenges, in fact, become the very fuel that makes you stronger. So, this great engine, this will to power, is constantly humming within us. It is the drive that woke us from the slumber of a world without external gods. It is the energy that now propels us across the blank canvas of our own lives. But what does this force see? When the will to power looks out upon the world, does it see a single, solid, objective reality, or does this powerful, creative force, by its very nature, shape and color, everything it perceives, the energy that carves a canyon and the energy that writes a symphony, do not merely exist within the world. They interpret the world in order to act upon it. And this leads us directly to our next great key of liberation. The idea that to change your world, you must first change the lens through which your power perceives it. We must now explore the radical freedom of what Nietzsche called perspectivism. We have just awakened to the powerful, internal engine of our soul, the will to power, that relentless universal drive to grow, expand, and overcome. We stand now in the creative void left by the death of external gods, holding the raw energy of creation in our hands. But a critical question remains. How does this energy interact with the world? How does it build a reality? The answer lies in our next great key. A concept so liberating, so profoundly reality-altering, that it can feel like waking from a lifelong dream. Nietzsche declared it with piercing clarity. There are no facts, only interpretations. Let that statement land for a moment. It seems to defy all logic and common sense. Surely, a mountain is a fact. A storm is a fact. The words on this page are a fact. But Nietzsche is inviting us to a much deeper level of perception. He is not denying the existence of raw data, of sensory input. The mountain exists. The storm happens. He is denying that these things have any inherent meaning attached to them. The meaning is not in the event. The meaning is in the eye of the beholder. The meaning is an act of creation, an interpretation that we project onto the neutral screen of reality. And in that single act of interpretation, we create the world we inhabit. You are not a passive observer of your life's events. You are the active narrator. The events themselves are merely the raw, disconnected plot points. It is you, the storyteller, who weaves them together, who chooses the theme, the tone, and the moral of the story. Think about it. The very same event, a job loss, it can be narrated as a tragedy. This is the end of my career. I am a failure. My security is gone. Or, it can be narrated as a story of liberation. This is the universe pushing me out of a role that no longer served me, freeing me to discover my true calling. The fact of the job loss is neutral, a simple severance of a contract, but the reality you experience, the emotions you feel, the actions you take next, are determined entirely by the story you choose to tell. A painful breakup can be interpreted as a story of abandonment and proof of your unworthiness. Or it can be a story of self-discovery and the courageous act of releasing a connection that was limiting your growth. One story leads to a downward spiral of despair. The other leads to an upward path of empowerment. The facts are the same. The interpretations create entirely different worlds. There is a timeless parable that illustrates this perfectly. Two people are confined in the same cell, looking out from the same window, through the very same set of iron bars. It is a fact that they are imprisoned. The first person looks at the bars, focusing on them with resentment. His interpretation is, I am trapped. I am a victim. These bars are my reality. As he holds this perspective, his body tenses. His breathing becomes shallow. Stress hormones flood his system. His entire physiological and emotional world is one of suffering. His universe is made of iron bars. The second person, in the exact same cell, looks through the very same bars, but chooses to focus his gaze on the space between them, on the sliver of night sky visible beyond. He sees the stars. His interpretation is, my body may be here, but my mind is free to wander the cosmos. There is beauty and mystery even in this confinement. As he holds this perspective, his body relaxes. His mind expands with wonder. A sense of peace descends. His universe is made of stars. Now, who is living in the real world? They both are. They have each used their power of interpretation to construct a reality. A lived, felt experience. From the exact same set of neutral facts. This is not some mystical wishful thinking. This is the fundamental principle behind some of the most effective psychological tools of our time. Long before modern science gave us cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, Nietzsche had already mapped its spiritual foundation. CBT is the clinical application of perspectivism. It teaches you to identify the automatic negative thoughts, which are nothing more than disempowering interpretations, to challenge their validity, and to consciously replace them with interpretations that are more constructive and empowering. Similarly, For those who work with the law of attraction, this concept is the master key. Your vibrational frequency is not some mysterious energy field floating around you. It is the net result of your dominant interpretations. If your dominant story is one of lack, victimhood, and fear, your vibration will reflect that, and you will attract circumstances that confirm your story. If you can consciously and consistently choose to interpret your life through a lens of opportunity, gratitude, and empowerment, your entire energetic signature changes, and reality must reorganize itself to match your new narrative. You are the tuning fork, and the universe simply harmonizes with the note you are holding. This power of interpretation is the primary tool of your will to power. A strong, vibrant, and healthy will actively seeks out and seizes upon interpretations that enhance its power, that affirm life, that lead to growth. When faced with a setback, a strong will asks, how can I use this? What is the opportunity here? How does this make me stronger? It actively looks for the starlight between the bars. A weak, tired, or resentful will, however, does the opposite. It passively accepts the most disempowering interpretations offered by society. Or worse, it actively seeks out interpretations that confirm its own sense of victimhood. It chooses to see only the bars, because the bars justify its own inaction and misery. The critical question to ask yourself when facing any situation is not, what is the objective truth of this matter? The more powerful, life-altering question is, which interpretation of this event will lead to an affirmation of life, to an expansion of my power, to my growth? This is not about lying to yourself or engaging in toxic positivity. It's not about pretending the bars aren't there. It is the courageous act of acknowledging the bars, and then intentionally focusing your creative and spiritual energy on the stars beyond them. You are the artist of perception. Life provides the raw material, the neutral colors of events, but you are the one who mixes them on the palette of your mind. You choose whether to paint a dark, somber landscape of despair or a vibrant, dynamic canvas of possibility. This power has been yours all along, but perhaps it has been operating on autopilot, conditioned by years of external programming. The moment you realize you can consciously choose your interpretations is the moment you take the steering wheel of your life. You cease to be a passenger tossed about by the waves of circumstance and become the captain, charting your course by choosing the meaning of the winds and the tides. Now, as we stand in this newfound awareness of our power as interpreters, a new landscape reveals itself. We begin to notice that our interpretations are often pulled between two great poles, two fundamental forces that seem to shape our very perception of reality. There is a force within us that seeks clarity, order, structure, and reason. The force that wants to draw neat lines and build stable forms. And there is another force, a wilder energy that craves passion, intensity, chaos, and the dissolution of boundaries. To truly master our power of interpretation, we must understand these two primal energies that are constantly wrestling for control of our soul's narrative. The ancient Greeks knew them well. They gave them the names of gods, Apollo and Dionysus. We stand now as the empowered interpreters of our own reality, armed with the knowledge that we are the storytellers, the narrators of our own existence. We have harnessed the driving force of the will to power, the engine of our soul. But as we begin to consciously choose our interpretations, we notice that our perspectives are pulled in two powerful, opposing directions. There are days we crave structure, clarity, and control, and other days we feel a deep yearning for freedom, intensity, and even a touch of chaos. Nietzsche, looking back to the profound wisdom of the ancient Greeks, recognized these two forces not as moods, but as the two fundamental, divine energies that weave the entire tapestry of human experience. They are the twin pillars of the soul, the great archetypal forces he called Apollo and Dionysus. To understand them is to understand the very rhythm of your life. First, let us meet Apollo. He is the god of the sun, of light, of clarity, and of reason. His world is one of perfect form, of beautiful, rational order. Think of a majestic marble sculpture, where every line is precise, every proportion is perfect, every detail is rendered with logic and control. That is the spirit of Apollo. Think of a well-structured symphony, a detailed spreadsheet, a 5-year plan, a meticulously organized calendar. This is the Apollonian impulse at work. It is the drive to create distinctions, to set boundaries, to categorize, to measure, and to build stable, predictable systems. Our modern society is a grand temple built in Apollo's honor. Our educational systems, our corporate hierarchies, our scientific methods, our obsession with data and productivity. All of this is a testament to our worship of the Apollonian spirit. And there is great power and beauty in this. Apollo gives us safety. He gives us the ability to build bridges and skyscrapers, to plan for the future, to create order out of entropy. He is the architect, the lawgiver, the rational mind that allows us to navigate the complexities of life without being overwhelmed. Without Apollo, there is no structure, no progress, no lasting creation. But Apollo has a brother, a shadow, a wild and intoxicating counterpart, the god Dionysus. He is the god of wine, of ecstasy, of music, of dance, and of the untamed wilderness. His realm is not the sunlit temple, but the moonlit forest. Dionysus represents the dissolution of boundaries, the merging of the individual with the collective, the raw, chaotic, instinctual surge of life itself. It is the exhilarating roar of a crowd at a concert, the frenzy of a dance floor where you lose all sense of time and self, the passionate, uncontrollable burst of creative inspiration. It is the primal scream, the belly laugh, the tears of overwhelming joy or sorrow. Dionysus is the force that shatters the neat categories of Apollo. He reminds us that we are not just rational minds, but also passionate animals, connected to the earth and to each other by a web of primal feeling. And our modern, Apollonian society has taught us to fear this energy. We label it as irresponsible, unprofessional, dangerous, or even insane. We are taught to control our emotions, to suppress our instincts, to stay within the lines, to keep the Dionysian beast locked firmly in its cage. Herein lies the great spiritual sickness that Nietzsche diagnosed. By worshipping Apollo exclusively, we have cut ourselves off from the very source of our vitality. A life lived only by Apollonian principles becomes sterile, rigid, and brittle. It is a life of endless planning with no spontaneous joy. A perfectly organized house where no one ever really lives. It is the burnout of the executive who has met every goal but feels empty inside. The creative stagnation of the artist who has mastered technique but has lost their passion. It is a beautiful, ornate cage. On the other hand, a life given over completely to Dionysus is one of self-destruction. It is the chaos of addiction, the madness of unchecked impulse, the fire of passion that burns so brightly, it consumes itself and everything around it, leaving only ashes. It is a storm without a ship, a force without direction. The secret to a flourishing, powerful, and creatively alive existence, Nietzsche declared, is not to choose one god over the other, but to foster their sacred marriage within your own soul. Greatness is born from the dynamic tension between them, but it is a very specific kind of marriage. It is not about a 50-50 split. It is about making Apollo, the god of structure, the servant of Dionysus, the god of passion, It is about using reason and discipline to build a beautiful, strong container for your chaotic, creative energy to dance within. Imagine a master jazz musician stepping onto a stage. For years, he has dedicated himself to Apollo. He has practiced his scales for thousands of hours. He has memorized music theory. He understands the complex chord structures and rhythms of his art form. This disciplined, Apollonian foundation is absolutely essential. Without it, his playing would be a meaningless jumble of notes. But when the solo begins, he does not simply recite what he has memorized. He closes his eyes. He lets go, and he invites Dionysus to take over. He taps into a deeper, wilder, more intuitive place. The music flows through him, unpredictable, passionate, and alive. He is riding the wave of chaos, but he is guided by the underlying structure he has mastered. Apollo has built the ship, but Dionysus is the wind that fills its sails, taking him to places he could never have planned to go. The result is pure magic, a transcendent moment of creation born from the perfect synthesis of order and chaos. This is the model for your own life. You must become the jazz musician of your own existence. So how do you practice this? You honor Apollo by creating structures that support your growth. Set clear goals. Create a morning routine. Organize your workspace. Manage your finances. Build a strong, reliable ship. But you must also consciously make space for Dionysus. Schedule time for unstructured play. Put on music that makes you want to move your body with abandon. Go for a walk in nature without a destination. Allow yourself to be messy. To finger paint with your kids. To have a conversation that isn't about productivity. Build a dance floor on the deck of your ship. The goal of embracing your inner chaos is not to let your life descend into a destructive mess. It is to finally acknowledge that the wild, unpredictable, passionate energy within you is not your enemy. It is the source of your greatest genius, your deepest joy, and your most authentic power. Your task is to befriend it, to trust it, and to build a beautiful Apollonian framework through which it can safely and constructively express its magic. As we learn to balance these forces, a crucial question emerges. Why has our culture so systematically taught us to fear the Dionysian and worship the Apollonian? This preference is not an accident of history. It is the result of deeply ingrained systems of morality, ancient codes of good and evil that were specifically designed to tame the wild spirit, to control the herd, and to suppress individual power. To truly achieve this inner harmony, to become the master of our own spiritual energies, we must now become courageous enough to step outside of these inherited frameworks. We must dare to look beyond the simplistic categories of good and evil and begin to create our own values. We have arrived at a pivotal, perhaps even treacherous, point in our journey. We have learned to dance with the primal energies of Apollo and Dionysus, to find the sacred balance between order and chaos within our own souls. But as we attempt this dance, we find that the floor is tilted. The music has been pre-selected. The rules of the dance have been written for us long before we were born. Our culture, our society, has a vested interest in which god we favor. It has a deeply ingrained prejudice against the wild, chaotic spirit of Dionysus. And it enforces this prejudice through its most powerful tool of control, its system of morality, its definitions of good and evil. To truly become the sovereign creator of your own life, you must now undertake the most courageous act of all. You must be willing to step beyond good and evil. Now, let this be clear. This is not a call for anarchy or cruelty. Nietzsche is not advocating that you become a villain in some cheap melodrama. He is inviting you to do something far more radical. To become a spiritual detective. To investigate the crime scene of your own conscience and ask one profound question: where did my values come from? What he discovered was that the morality we have inherited in the Western world, the one we absorb through our culture, our religions, And our education is not a divine or absolute truth. It is a very specific type of morality, with a very specific origin. He called it slave morality, or, perhaps more usefully for us, the morality of the herd. Imagine a vast herd of sheep. They are not individually strong, but they find safety in numbers. What qualities would this herd value most in its members? It would value gentleness, obedience, patience, pity, and humility. Why? Because these qualities make the herd manageable, predictable, and safe. An individual sheep that is too proud, too aggressive, or too independent is a threat to the cohesion of the flock. So, the herd cleverly performs what Nietzsche called a transvaluation of values. It takes its own weaknesses, its inability to exert power, and relabels them as virtues. I am not weak. The sheep says, I am meek, and blessed are the meek. I am not cowardly. It claims, I am patient. I am not unable to take revenge. I am forgiving. In this system, everything associated with individual strength and power, pride, ambition, independence, a touch of ruthlessness is labeled as evil. This morality is brilliant in its function. It protects the collective, but it does so at the cost of taming and ultimately weakening the potential of the exceptional individual. In stark contrast to this, Nietzsche identified another system, which he called master morality, or the morality of the noble soul. This morality does not arise from a collective, but from a powerful, confident, life-affirming individual. This person does not look to their neighbor or to a sacred text to know what is good. They look inside. They feel their own overflowing sense of power, their creativity, their courage, their zest for life. And they say, this feeling, this way of being, is good. Consequently, bad is simply everything. They are not weak, fearful, petty, grasping, and resentful. Master morality is born from a powerful yes to life. In all its beauty and its terror, it does not ask for permission. It creates value by its very existence. The question for the noble soul is not, is this action approved by others, but rather, is this action an expression of my strength? Does this affirm my power and elevate my spirit? So here you stand, a modern soul, with the echoes of 2,000 years of herd morality whispering in your ear, telling you to be humble, to play small, to fit in, to put others first. And yet, you feel that Dionysian fire within you, that will to power, that yearning to become something more, something unique, something great. To harmonize these forces, you must undertake your own revaluation of all values. You must have the courage to place every single one of your inherited beliefs on the table and examine it under a harsh light. Take a value like humility. Ask yourself, honestly, whom does my humility serve? Does it make me a better, stronger person, or does it make me shrink myself so that others with more fragile egos won't feel threatened by my light? What if you were to experiment with replacing it? Not with arrogance, but with a quiet, profound self-respect. Take a word like ambition, so often tainted with negativity. Is it truly evil, or is it simply the will to power expressing itself? The seed pushing through the concrete. Let's imagine the story of a woman we'll call Jane. She has a good job in a prestigious law firm. It's stable, it pays well, and her parents are immensely proud. According to the values of the herd, she has succeeded. She is a good daughter, a good citizen, but Jane feels a deep sense of misery, a spiritual emptiness. Her Apollonian life is perfect on paper, but her Dionysian soul is dying. Deep within her is a passion for sustainable farming, an idea to create a revolutionary urban gardening system. To her family and colleagues, this idea is bad. It is risky. It is a step down. It is foolish to throw away a secure career. For Jane to follow her dream, she must perform a radical act. She must step beyond the good and evil of her tribe. She must declare that the good of the herd's safety, predictability, approval is actually bad for her soul, and the bad of the herd risk, uncertainty. Rebellion is the only good that can make her feel alive. Her journey to quit her job, to face financial struggle, to get her hands dirty in the soil, is an act of creating her own table of values. Good for her is no longer what is safe, but what is authentic. Good is what affirms her unique life, her personal will to power. She becomes the master of her own moral universe. This path is not easy. It is perhaps the most demanding journey one can take. It requires you to stand alone, to disappoint people, to be misunderstood. The herd will bow with disapproval, but it is the only path to a life of genuine freedom and authenticity. It is the only way to ensure that the music you are dancing to is truly your own. This profound process of shedding the skin of inherited morality and becoming the creator of your own values is not something that happens overnight. It is not an intellectual decision, but a deep, organic, spiritual transformation. Nietzsche, in his poetic wisdom, understood this. He didn't just present the problem. He gave us a map of the transformative journey itself. He described it as a series of 3 great stages, 3 metamorphoses of the spirit. To begin this journey of becoming a true lawgiver to yourself, you must first understand the stage in which all of us, without exception, begin our lives. You must understand the strength, the burden, and the ultimate limitation of the first spirit, the spirit of the camel. We have dared to step beyond the inherited fences of good and evil, and in doing so, we have claimed the right to create our own values. But this creation is not a simple act of intellectual choice. It is a profound journey of the soul, a deep and often arduous transformation of our very being. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his great wisdom, did not just point to the destination. He provided a poetic and powerful map for this journey. He saw that the spirit, in its quest for freedom and creative power, must pass through 3 distinct stages of evolution, 3 great metamorphoses. To understand this map is to understand the very process of your own becoming. Our journey begins where all journeys begin, with the first and most fundamental form of the spirit, a creature of immense strength and profound patience. We must begin our story in the vast, sun-beaten desert, and meet the noble beast of burden, the camel. The spirit first becomes a camel. It is a reverent spirit, strong and load-bearing. It kneels down, wanting to be well loaded. The camel does not question the load. It asks, what is the heaviest thing, so that it may take it upon its back and rejoice in its strength. This is the spirit of duty, of discipline, of apprenticeship. Before we can become masters of our own lives, we must first learn to serve. We must learn the rules, absorb the traditions, and build the foundational strength necessary for the journey ahead. Think of the camel not as a lowly creature, but as a stoic and honorable spiritual athlete in training. Its motto, the command it bows to, is "Thou shalt." From our earliest days, we are all camels. We kneel down and allow the burdens of the world to be placed upon our backs. Our parents, our teachers, our culture, they are the first masters of the camel. They load us with their values, their beliefs, their expectations. Thou shalt get good grades. Thou shalt be polite and well-behaved. Thou shalt choose a sensible and secure career. Thou shalt follow the religion of your ancestors. Thou shalt get married, buy a house, and have children. These are the heavy things, the inherited duties and truths that we carry into the desert of life. And for a time, we carry them with a sense of pride. There is a nobility in being a good student, a dutiful child, a responsible employee. The camel stage is where we build our spiritual muscle, our resilience, our capacity for hard work. It is an absolutely essential phase, and it should be honored. No one is born a lion. Let us imagine a young apprentice carpenter. When she first enters the master's workshop, she is not given a piece of fine wood and told to create. She is handed a broom and told to sweep. She spends months, perhaps years, simply observing, cleaning, and learning the names and textures of the woods. She is a camel. Her master commands, "Thou shalt sharpen this chisel at a perfect 25-degree angle. Thou shalt learn the grain of the wood before you ever make a cut. Thou shalt respect the tools as extensions of your own hands." She kneels, and she obeys. She carries the burden of 1,000 rules. She is not creating. She is absorbing. She is building the deep, intuitive knowledge and the disciplined strength that will one day, far in the future, allow her to create something magnificent. Without this camel stage, her future passion would be useless. Her creativity would have no skill through which to express itself. She would be all Dionysian fire with no Apollonian container. And her efforts would result only in a pile of splintered wood. So, we must all pass through this stage. But here lies the great danger of the camel's spirit. It can fall in love with its burdens. Its entire identity can become wrapped up in how much it can carry. It begins to measure its worth by the weight on its back. Look around at the adult world, and you will see a desert filled with weary camels. People who have carried the expectations of others for so long, they have forgotten they even had a choice. The man who works a soul-crushing job he hates, because it is the good and responsible burden he was told to carry. The woman who exhausts herself trying to be the perfect mother according to impossible societal standards. A heavy bundle placed upon her back by social media and tradition. We carry the burdens of unresolved family trauma, the burdens of religious guilt, the burdens of trying to live up to an idealized image of ourselves that was never our own. And the spirit grows tired. The desert, which once seemed a noble path of duty, now seems endless and meaningless. The joy in its strength fades, and all that remains is the crushing weight. This is the moment for a spiritual audit. It is a time for the camel to stop, to kneel down not in submission, but in contemplation, and to look honestly at the load it carries. I invite you to do this now. Visualize yourself as this noble camel. Feel the weight on your back. What are the bundles you are carrying? Let's begin to name them. Perhaps one heavy sack is filled with the belief that you must always be agreeable and never cause conflict. Another might contain the voice of a parent telling you that your artistic dreams are foolish and impractical. Another might be the heavy stone of a past failure that you have carried for years. A burden of shame that no one asked you to carry but yourself. Naming these burdens is the first crucial step. It is the moment the camel stops simply carrying and begins to know what it is carrying. It is the beginning of consciousness. As this awareness dawns, a new feeling begins to stir in the camel's heart. It is a feeling of discontent, of holy rebellion. A quiet voice from deep within whispers, "I do not want to carry anymore. I want to create. I do not want to follow the paths worn by others in this desert. I want to find my own way." The camel looks up from the sand and sees, for the first time, the vast, intimidating emptiness of the loneliest desert. A place where no caravans travel. A place where there are no masters to give commands. And it feels a pull towards that emptiness. A terrifying and exhilarating desire for freedom. It knows that to enter this desert, it cannot remain a beast of burden. Its accumulated strength is now to be used not for carrying, but for fighting. It must seek out the greatest enemy of freedom, the ultimate master of thou shalt. It is seeking a great, glittering dragon, on whose scales are written all the values of 1,000 generations. To face this dragon, to win its own freedom, the spirit must undergo its first radical transformation. The reverent, load-bearing spirit is no longer enough. The spirit must become a hunter. The spirit must become a king. The spirit must become a lion. The camel, heavy with the burdens of 1,000 thou shalts, has made its choice. It has turned from the well-trodden caravan paths and journeyed deep into the heart of the loneliest desert. This is not a place on any map. It is a landscape within the soul. A silent, sun-bleached expanse where one must finally face oneself. Alone. Here, in this profound solitude, the air grows thin, and a strange fire begins to burn in the spirit's heart. The patient's skin begins to itch and crack. The stoic humility sours into a holy discontent. The heavy burdens, once carried with pride, now feel like an intolerable cage. A growl begins to form deep in the throat where once there was only silent acceptance. This is the moment of the second metamorphosis. The spirit that kneels is no longer enough. To conquer this desert, to claim it as its own, the spirit must rise. It must shed its humble hide, shake the sand from its mane, and become a lion. And what does the lion find in this loneliest desert? It finds its master, its keeper, the ultimate source of all the burdens it once carried. It finds the great dragon. This is no mere beast of myth. It is the magnificent, terrifying embodiment of all inherited values. It is vast and ancient, its body covered not in scales of hide, but in glittering scales of pure gold. And on each and every scale, a value from 1,000 years of history sparkles and gleams. This dragon is beautiful. Its wisdom seems unassailable. Its voice booms with the authority of millennia. Its name is Thou Shalt. One golden scale shines with the words, Thou shalt be practical. Another glitters with Thou shalt not be selfish. Another, Thou shalt honor the ways of your ancestors. Others gleam with Thou shalt feel guilty for your desires. Thou shalt conform to the group. Thou shalt be realistic. The dragon is the warden of the herd's morality, and its fiery breath is the searing heat of shame, guilt, and fear, designed to force any rebellious spirit back into line. The camel would have knelt before this magnificent beast, trembling in awe and obedience. But the lion does not kneel. It meets the dragon's ancient gaze with its own burning yellow eyes. The dragon roars, and its voice is the voice of every parent, priest, and teacher who ever defined your world for you. Thou shalt. It is a command that has held civilizations in its thrall. But the lion has learned a new and holy word. A word of power that the camel could never utter. The lion fills its lungs, and for the first time, it roars back with all the force of its newfound will. It roars. No, this is the sacred no. It is not the no of a stubborn child, but the no of a sovereign king reclaiming his territory. It is the no to a life of quiet desperation. The no to a career that feeds the bank account but starves the soul. The no to relationships that demand you shrink yourself to fit. The no to the guilt that has kept you small and the fear that has kept you safe but imprisoned. And as the lion roars its sacred no, it leaps. It is not just a battle. It is a holy destruction. A sacred duty to create freedom. Its claws, sharpened by the discipline of its camel stage, are now used not to carry, but to tear away the golden scales of the dragon. Think of our aspiring artist, Leo, who has carried the Thou shalt be a doctor scale his entire life. The dragon confronts him through the voices of his family. You are being selfish, it roars, breathing the fire of guilt. You are throwing away your security, it screams, breathing the fire of fear. You are dishonoring our family's tradition, it bellows, breathing the fire of shame. The camel spirit in Leo would have buckled, apologized, and re-enrolled in his pre-med courses. But the lion in him rises. He faces his family, not with hatred, but with a terrible, unshakable clarity. He says his sacred no. But the lion has another roar, a creative roar that counters the dragon's command. where the dragon says thou shalt, the lion roars back, I will. I will live a life that feels authentic to me. I will face uncertainty for the chance to feel alive. I will define my own success. I will be an artist. This I will is the sound of the dragon's golden scales shattering on the desert floor. It is not yet a detailed plan for a new life. It is something more fundamental. It is the raw, powerful claiming of the right to create that plan for oneself. Perhaps this desert is familiar to you. Perhaps you are standing in it right now. If you have ever set a firm boundary with a toxic person, you have known the lion's roar. If you have ever walked away from a safe path to pursue a passion, you have felt the lion's claws tearing away a golden scale. If you are in the process of deconstructing the religious or political dogmas of your upbringing, you are in the midst of this sacred battle. It is a messy, often painful stage. To the herd you left behind, you may look angry, destructive, or lost. But what you are truly doing is fighting for your own sacred ground. You are winning the freedom to exist. And the lion is victorious. The mighty dragon lies slain. Its glittering values scattered like so much broken glass. The desert is silent. The spirit is, for the first time, utterly free. There is no master, no commander, no thou shalt echoing in the air. The feeling is one of exhilarating, breathtaking liberty. But as the dust settles, the lion looks around at the world. It is one. It is a world of its own. But it is empty. The lion's great strength was in destruction, in negation, in rebellion. It was defined by its enemy, its identity forged in the heat of battle. But now the enemy is gone. What is a warrior without a war? Freedom from the dragon has been achieved. But freedom for what the lion can roar its eye will, but it does not yet know how to build. It can clear the land, but it cannot plant a single seed. A life lived only as a lion becomes its own kind of prison. A barren landscape of perpetual opposition. Forever, looking over its shoulder, at the ghost of the dragon it defeated. Freedom is not an end in itself. It is merely the cleared space, the prepared ground, the sacred emptiness where something new can be born. For this birth to happen, the spirit must undergo one last and most miraculous transformation. The angry, roaring, warrior spirit is no longer what is needed. The might and fury must give way to something else entirely. The spirit must become innocent. It must learn to play. It must be born anew. The victorious lion must lay down its heavy crown and become a child. The battle is over. The great dragon thou shalt lies defeated. Its glittering scales of inherited value now dull and broken on the desert floor. The lion stands alone. Its roar of I will echoing into the vast, silent emptiness. It has won. The spirit is finally free. But this freedom is a strange and unsettling thing. It is the freedom of a blank page, the freedom of a silent room, the freedom of an empty stage. The warrior's rage has cooled, and in its place, a profound question begins to surface. What now? The lion's strength was in opposition, its identity defined by the monster it fought. Now, with no monster left to fight, the lion's power threatens to become a weight. Its roar, a mere echo. Freedom from something is not a home. It is a temporary clearing. To build a home, to plant a garden in this newly won desert, a warrior is no longer needed. A different kind of spirit is required. One that possesses a power the lion could never comprehend. For the final metamorphosis to occur, the spirit must not become stronger, but lighter. It must not become more knowing, but more forgetful. The mighty, battle-scarred lion must lay down its pride and its anger, and be born again. As a child, this is the most miraculous and paradoxical of the transformations. The spirit as a child is innocence and a forgetting, a new beginning, a game, a self-propelling wheel. A first motion. A sacred yes. The child is a forgetting. It does not carry the heavy burdens of the camel's memory. Nor is it haunted by the anger and cynicism of the lion's rebellion. It arrives in the present moment, fresh, new, and unencumbered. It looks upon the world not as a series of duties to be performed or enemies to be conquered, but as a wondrous playground waiting to be explored. Its spirit is a clean slate, ready not to be written upon by others, but to draw its own world into existence. Its power is not in resistance, but in affirmation. The camel could only say a resentful yes to the will of others. The lion could only roar a sacred no to that will. But the child, free from both, can now offer the highest, most powerful affirmation of all, a sacred yes to life itself. In its totality, this yes is the key to the child's creative power. The essence of the child's spirit is play. Think of a child on a beach, building a sandcastle. The child is not working. They are not trying to meet a deadline, impress a boss, or achieve a 5-year plan for their sandcastle empire. They are not concerned with the market value of their creation. The act of creation itself is the sole reward. The joy is in the process, in the feeling of the sand, in the wonder of making something appear where once there was nothing. They are in a state of pure presence, a state of flow, where the creator and the creation are one. Time dissolves. The ego dissolves. There is only the joyful, spontaneous act of bringing something new into the world. This is the highest form of creation Nietzsche could imagine. It is creation without the grim seriousness of the camel or the angry exertion of the lion. It is creation as a form of divine play. Let's return to our hero, Leo, who as a lion, bravely fought his family's dragon and won the freedom to be an artist. In his lion stage, he might create art that is angry, political, a fierce rebellion against the establishment he rejected. His art would be defined by what it is against. But as his spirit transforms into the child, his creative process changes. He no longer needs to fight. He has forgotten the battle. He begins to create, not from a place of anger, but from a place of pure curiosity and joy. He might start a project simply because the color blue fascinates him, or because he wants to see what happens when he mixes two different materials. He is playing. He is following his own innocent curiosity. And paradoxically, it is this art, born from the spirit of play, that is his most original, most powerful, and most authentic work. It is no longer a reaction to the old world of the dragon. It is the genuine creation of a new one. This is the secret that all great creators, innovators, and spiritual masters know. The state of genius is the state of the child. It is the ability to approach the world with a beginner's mind, free from the calcified knowledge and prejudices of the past. It is about reconnecting with what many today would call our inner child. This is not a call to become childish or irresponsible. It is a call to reclaim the sacred qualities of the child's spirit that our Apollonian, duty-bound society has forced us to suppress. It is the quality of wonder that allows us to see the miraculous in the mundane. It is the quality of spontaneity that allows us to seize unforeseen opportunities. It is the quality of joyful absorption that allows us to enter the state of flow, where our best work is done effortlessly. The child, in its sacred play, finally completes the task that the lion could only begin. The lion cleared the space for new values by destroying the old. The child creates these new values, not by writing a new set of commandments, but simply by living them. The child's good is that which is joyful, that which is life-affirming, that which comes from a place of authentic, playful curiosity. It doesn't need to write a new moral code. Its very life becomes a new moral code. It is a self-propelling wheel, a first motion. It no longer needs to be pushed by duty like the camel, or to push against an enemy like the lion. Its motivation comes entirely from within, a continuous, joyful unfolding of its own being. To arrive at this stage is to achieve a profound form of spiritual mastery, to have borne the weight of the world's knowledge, to have fought for one's own freedom, and then to be able to let it all go. To become as light and as creative as a child, this is the culmination of the soul's great journey. But it is not the end. In fact, it is a new beginning on a much higher level. For a spirit that has become a self-propelling wheel, a spirit that can joyfully affirm its own existence and create its own world through play, is now finally ready to understand and strive for Nietzsche's most awe-inspiring and challenging ideal. It is ready to become a bridge to a new kind of human being, one that has overcome the limitations of our current form. It is ready to hear the call of the Übermensch, the Overman. The journey of the spirit has been long and profound. We have traveled with the dutiful camel. We have roared with the rebellious lion. And we have learned to create with the joyful innocence of the child. Having passed through these three great metamorphoses, the spirit now stands at the precipice of a new understanding. It is free from the burdens of the past and the anger of rebellion, ready to engage in the sacred play of creating its own world. And from this high vantage point, a new horizon becomes visible, a new possibility for humanity itself. This is the moment we must speak of Nietzsche's highest, most awe-inspiring, and most dangerously misunderstood ideal: the concept of the Übermensch, the Overman. First, we must perform a sacred clearing. The word Übermensch has been dragged through the mud of history, twisted into a monstrous caricature by the darkest of political ideologies. It has been used to justify unspeakable horrors, to promote racist and nationalist agendas that are the absolute antithesis of everything Nietzsche stood for. So let us be unequivocally clear. The Übermensch has nothing to do with race, nationality, or genetic superiority. It is not about one group of people dominating another. The Übermensch is a spiritual goal, an individual aspiration, a potential that lies dormant within every single soul, waiting to be awakened. It is a call not to conquer the world, but to conquer yourself. Nietzsche declared, "Man is a rope, tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss." This is one of his most powerful images. Humanity, as we currently exist, is not the pinnacle of creation. We are not a destination. We are a transition. We are a bridge. Behind us is the animal, driven by pure instinct and survival. Before us, across a dangerous, yawning abyss, is the Overman, the next stage of our evolution. Our very purpose, the meaning of our lives, is to be this bridge, to participate in the perilous and exhilarating journey of crossing that rope. To refuse this journey, to try and build a comfortable little house in the middle of the rope, is what Nietzsche scorned as the age of the last man. The last man is the ultimate comfort seeker, a creature who wants no risk, no great passion, no struggle. He wants only warmth, security, and mild, harmless entertainment. The last man, in his contented mediocrity, is the end of the line. The Overman is the one who dares to cross the rope. So what does this Overman look like? He is not a muscle-bound superhero or a cold-hearted dictator. The Overman is the human being who has successfully integrated all the stages of the spirit. He is the one who has become the master of his own inner world. He has the discipline and strength of the camel, but carries only the burdens he himself has chosen. He possesses the courageous, freedom-loving spirit of the lion, but no longer needs an enemy to define himself. And most importantly, he lives with the creative, joyful, life-affirming spirit of the child, creating his own values and dancing his own dance. The Overman has mastered the forces of Apollo and Dionysus within. He uses his reason and discipline not to stifle his passion, but to give it a beautiful and powerful form. The Overman does not seek comfort. He seeks growth. He does not pray for an easy life. He prays for the strength to endure a difficult one. He understands the profound truth that what doesn't kill him makes him stronger. He therefore welcomes challenges, setbacks, and even suffering, not out of some morbid desire for pain, but because he sees every obstacle as a whetstone upon which to sharpen his will, an opportunity to practice the art of self-overcoming. He has cultivated amor fati, a deep and trusting love of his fate, seeing every event in his life, both joyous and painful, as a necessary and perfect thread in the magnificent tapestry of his becoming. This is a being who says a resounding, thunderous yes to life, not just to the pleasant parts, but to the whole of it. You might recognize this as something akin to the higher self or the fully actualized person spoken of in many spiritual traditions, and the connection is valid. But with a crucial Nietzschean twist, the Übermensch is not a detached, purely benevolent spirit floating in an otherworldly bliss. He is deeply, passionately engaged with this earth, this life. He is a warrior, artist, philosopher. His spirituality is not found in escaping the world, but in transforming it through the power of his will. His goal is not to get to heaven, but to bring the highest potentials of the human spirit down to earth and give them form. To find a metaphor for this potential, we could look to a figure like Leonardo da Vinci. Here was a man who seemed to be a bridge to a new kind of human. His curiosity was relentless. His desire to learn and create was boundless. He was not just a painter. He was a scientist, an engineer, an anatomist, a musician. He refused to be confined by any single discipline. He created his own standards of excellence, forever pushing at the boundaries of what a human being was capable of knowing and doing. He was a living embodiment of the creative will to power, a testament to a potential that lies within our species. It is vital to understand that the Übermensch is not a final destination that one arrives at, like a train pulling into a station. It is a direction, not a goal. It is the North Star that guides your journey. The value lies in the striving, in the courageous act of walking the rope over the abyss. You can use this ideal as a practical guide in your own life. When faced with a choice, you can ask yourself, what would the Overman version of me do? What choice leads to more growth, more power, more life? Which path is the path of courage, and which is the path of comfort? The Overman is the promise of what you could be if you dared to fully embrace your own potential. This is an inspiring, almost intoxicating vision of human possibility. It begs the question, if this potential for greatness exists within us, what stops us? Why do so many of us prefer to stay on the safe side of the abyss, or huddle together as last men in the middle of the rope? The path is indeed perilous, and the abyss below is filled with our own worst psychological tendencies. And there is one spiritual poison in particular, one venom of the soul, so potent that it makes us envy those who fall and resent those who dare to cross. It is the single greatest obstacle on the path to the Overman, a sickness of the spirit that Nietzsche gave a very specific name: ressentiment. We have glimpsed the breathtaking horizon of human potential, the ideal of the Übermensch, the Overman, who walks the rope over the abyss with courage and creative joy. We feel the call to become this bridge to a higher form of humanity. But as we take our first tentative steps onto that rope, a force from below seeks to pull us down. It is a toxic gravity, a spiritual poison that seeps into the soul and paralyzes the will. It is the single greatest enemy of personal growth, the silent killer of greatness, and the most insidious trap on the path to self-overcoming. Nietzsche gave it a precise name, a French term to capture its specific, curdled flavor. He called it ressentiment. Ressentiment is not simple anger or jealousy. Anger can be a clean, powerful force that motivates action. Jealousy can be a straightforward, if painful, desire for something another possesses. Ressentiment is far more cunning, more venomous. It is the impotent rage of the powerless, a bitterness that, unable to express itself in the world through action, turns inward and becomes creative in the most perverse way. It does not create art or beauty. It creates a new system of morality to justify its own weakness. It is the psychological engine of the slave morality we spoke of earlier, unable to achieve what the strong achieve. The man of resentment does not seek to become stronger. Instead, he seeks to devalue strength itself. He creates a world where his weakness is relabeled as a virtue. The purest illustration of this spiritual poison comes from the timeless fable of the fox and the grapes by Aesop. A fox sees a beautiful, ripe, juicy bunch of grapes hanging high on a vine. His will to power stirs. He desires them. He leaps, again and again, trying with all his might to reach them. But he fails. Now, a strong, noble spirit, the spirit of the overman, would either admit defeat and move on, or it would get creative, find a ladder, and try a new strategy. But the spirit of resentment does something else entirely. The fox, unable to get the grapes, turns away with a sneer and mutters to himself, "Oh, those grapes are probably sour anyway." This is the very formula of resentment. What I cannot have, I will declare to be worthless. It is an act of imaginary revenge. Since the fox cannot raise himself up to the level of the grapes, he must drag the grapes down to the level of his own failure. He poisons the object of his desire with a negative judgment in order to soothe his own wounded ego. This sour grapes mentality is a rampant plague in our modern world. And once you learn to see it, you will see it everywhere. Listen to the way people talk about money. You will hear the man of resentment, struggling financially, declare, "Money is the root of all evil. Rich people are all shallow, greedy, and unhappy." He cannot attain wealth, so he declares wealth itself to be sour. Listen to how people talk about love. You will hear the person who feels lonely and rejected say, "Happy relationships are a sham. It's all a performance for social media. I'm glad I'm not caught up in all that drama." They cannot attain a fulfilling partnership, so they declare the partnership itself to be sour. Nowhere is this poison more potent than in our age of social media. You scroll through your feed, you see an old acquaintance who has started a successful business, who has achieved a level of physical fitness you envy, who is traveling to beautiful places. A healthy spirit feels a pang of inspiration. Wow, good for them. That proves it's possible. But the spirit of resentment feels a bitter sting. And immediately, the fox brain gets to work, whispering its venom. They probably had rich parents. They must have sacrificed their whole life for that body. I bet they're miserable. That vacation is just a curated lie to make us all feel bad. In that moment, you are calling the grapes sour. You are participating in an act of imaginary revenge that does absolutely nothing to harm the other person, but does everything to poison your own soul, keeping you trapped in a low-vibration state of negativity and inaction. The most dangerous stage of resentment is when it evolves from a momentary feeling into a full-blown identity. This is the cult of victimhood. The person who lives in this state has abdicated all personal power. Their life story is a long, sad litany of injustices done to them. They are a victim of their parents, their ex-partners, their boss, the economy, the government, the system. While this identity can provide a strange kind of comfort and a sense of moral superiority, the superiority of the wronged is the ultimate spiritual cage. By defining yourself as the victim, you are by definition powerless. You are admitting that the locus of control for your life lies outside of yourself. You are waiting for an apology, for reparations, for the world to change before you can be happy or successful. And so you wait, and wait, while your soul slowly curdles in the poison of blame. So what is the antidote to this insidious venom? The antidote is as powerful as the poison is subtle. It is a single, profound shift in consciousness. The shift from blame to radical responsibility. It is the decision to reclaim your role as the sole creator of your inner world. When faced with a situation that triggers resentment, The practice is to pull your energy back from the external world and ask the hard questions of the self. Instead of blaming the successful person, ask, what beliefs do I hold that are preventing me from pursuing my own success? Instead of blaming the system, ask, within this system, what actions are within my power to take right now? You stop being the passive object to whom things happen, and you become the active subject who creates meaning and initiates action, regardless of the circumstances. This extends to the feeling of envy itself. Envy is a powerful signal. It is your soul's way of pointing at something and saying, I want that. Do not crush it. Do not pretend you don't feel it. Acknowledge it. Thank it for the information. And then, consciously transmute the poison into fuel. The moment you feel the sting of envy towards another's success, perform this act of spiritual alchemy. Say to yourself, their success is not a judgment on my failure. Their success is proof that what I desire is possible. It is evidence. Now, what can I learn from their journey? What inspiration can I take from their achievement to fuel my own? In that moment, you transform yourself from the bitter fox into the aspiring student. You turn the poison into a potion. Overcoming resentment is not a one-time fix. It is a constant practice of vigilance. A spiritual disciplina. It requires us to become warriors of our own minds, guarding the gates of our consciousness against the whispers of the fox. But to truly cauterize this wound at its root, we need a tool even more powerful than conscious reframing. We need a thought experiment so profound, so earth-shattering, that it forces us into a state of absolute and total ownership of our lives. We need a perspective that makes blame utterly impossible and victimhood an absurd luxury. We need Nietzsche's ultimate test for the soul. His greatest and most terrifying gift, the idea of the eternal recurrence. What if a demon were to creep after you one day, in your loneliest loneliness, and say to you, this life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it. But every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life must return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. This is the thought experiment that Nietzsche called the greatest weight, the ultimate test for the human soul. Imagine that demon, right now, whispering in your ear. He is not offering a theory. He is presenting you with a new reality. There are no second chances, no do-overs, no alternate timelines. The life you are living at this very moment will repeat exactly as it is, forever. Every triumph, every heartbreak, every moment of transcendent joy, every second of agonizing boredom, every kind word you have spoken, and every cruel one, all of it, on a perpetual loop, for all of eternity. The demon then poses the ultimate question: would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, you are a god, and I never have I heard anything more divine. This is the eternal recurrence, and its purpose is not for you to believe it as a literal, metaphysical truth about the cosmos. You do not need to believe in reincarnation for this to be the most powerful spiritual tool you have ever encountered. Its purpose is to serve as the ultimate filter for your life, a crucible in which every choice, every thought, and every action is tested. It is the greatest weight because it infuses every single moment with the weight of eternity. In a world where you live only once, moments can feel disposable. You can tell yourself, I'll just get through this boring workday, or I'll be happy once this difficult period is over. But in a world of eternal recurrence, there are no throwaway moments. That boring workday will be repeated an infinite number of times. That difficult period will return again and again. Suddenly, every single second becomes sacred. Every decision becomes monumental. If the demon's proposition fills you with horror, that horror is a divine message. It is your soul telling you that you are not living a life you are proud of. It reveals all the places where you are living out of alignment with your deepest values. It shines a spotlight on the compromises you've made out of fear, the relationships you tolerate out of a sense of obligation, the words left unsaid, the dreams left unpursued. The horror is a sign that you are living the life of the camel or the resentful lion, a life you would not want to repeat. But if you can imagine greeting the demon as a god, if the thought of reliving your life fills you with a profound and powerful joy, it means you are living a life of authenticity. It means you are creating a life that is so true, so vibrant, so aligned with your will to power, that you would gladly sign your name to it for all eternity. This is the goal, to live in such a way that you would want your life to be your eternal heaven, not your eternal hell. Let us make this practical. Imagine a woman named Sarah. She is at a major crossroads. She has been dating a kind, stable, and successful man for several years. He is, by all societal standards, a perfect match. He has just proposed. Her family is thrilled. Her friends are envious. Her rational mind tells her this is the right thing to do. But in her heart, there is a quiet unease. She respects him, but she does not feel the deep, passionate, soul-level connection she has always dreamed of. Her fear of being alone, her fear of disappointing everyone, pushes her to say yes. Now, she decides to apply the test of eternal recurrence. She closes her eyes and imagines not just saying yes, but living that yes for eternity. She imagines the 10,000 breakfasts in polite silence, the million small compromises of her spirit, the eternal recurrence of a life that is fine but never magnificent. The thought fills her with an unutterable dread. This is the demon's curse. Then, she imagines the alternative, the terrifying, courageous act of saying no. She imagines the consequences, the disappointment of her family, the lonely nights, the uncertainty of the future. But she also imagines the integrity of that choice, the fierce, powerful act of honoring her own soul's deepest longing. And she asks herself if she would be willing to relive that moment of courage, that leap into the unknown, for all eternity. And a strange sense of power fills her. She would. The test has burned away the fog of fear and societal expectation, and it has illuminated the path of life affirmation. This is the ultimate mindfulness practice. The knowledge that this very moment will echo forever forces you into the present with an incredible intensity. You would not scroll mindlessly through your phone for an hour if you knew you would have to repeat that hour for eternity. You would not engage in a petty, resentful argument. You would not tolerate a life of quiet desperation. Instead, you would strive to make every moment a work of art. You would savor your experiences. You would engage in your conversations with deep presence. You would choose your actions with profound intention. You would stop living in the past or for the future, and realize that the only point of power, the only place where creation happens, is right here, in this eternal now. And finally, this is the ultimate antidote to the poison of resentment. How can you possibly maintain a victim mentality when you are faced with the eternal repetition of your own life? To blame others for your unhappiness becomes an absurd luxury you cannot afford if you are to live with your circumstances forever. You have no choice but to take radical ownership of them. You must find a way to interpret them, to reframe them, to find the strength and the lesson within them. The test forces you to become the powerful interpreter, the master of your own perspective. You cannot call the grapes sour if you have to eat them for all eternity. You have no choice but to find a way to make them sweet, or to develop the strength to find a different vine. The eternal recurrence burns away the fox's excuses and leaves only the raw, terrifying, and liberating power of your own will. But this raises the most profound challenge of all. The demon asks if you would greet him as a god, not if you would endure the repetition, but if you would welcome it with joy. This implies that you must come to a place where you can say yes, not just to your successes and joys, but to your failures, your heartbreaks, your deepest sufferings. How is it possible to joyfully affirm the eternal repetition of our pain? To simply tolerate it is not enough for the overman. To achieve this divine perspective, we need a new formula for greatness, a new way of relating to fate itself. We need to learn not just to accept our destiny, but to fall in love with it. We must learn the secret of what Nietzsche called amor fati. We are now faced with the gravest and most magnificent challenge of our journey. We stand before the thought experiment of eternal recurrence, the ultimate test of a life well lived. The demon on our shoulder has whispered his proposition: this exact life, with every joy and every sorrow, will be repeated for all eternity. And he asks if we would greet this news with the horror of the cursed, or the joy of the divine. This question forces us to confront the most difficult parts of our own story. The pain, the failure, the heartbreak. How can we possibly get to a place where we would not just endure the eternal return of our suffering, but joyfully embrace it? How can we affirm a life that contains so much that is difficult? Nietzsche, in his profound wisdom, gives us the answer. It is not a trick or a consolation, but a formula for human greatness, a secret whispered from the heart of a spirit that has learned to soar. He called it, in two simple Latin words, amor fati, the love of one's fate. Amor fati is not passive resignation. It is not gritting your teeth and telling yourself, I just have to accept this. That is the stoicism of the camel, bearing its burden. Amor fati is the active, passionate, and joyful affirmation of everything that has ever happened, is happening, and will ever happen in your life. It is the conscious choice to see the entirety of your life story as not just acceptable, but necessary, perfect, and beautiful. It is the ability to look back at your deepest wounds and your most triumphant moments and say with your whole being, I would not have any of it be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. It was all essential. It was all for me. This is a perspective so powerful, so radically life-altering, that it transforms the very nature of reality. You cease to be a victim of circumstance, a small boat tossed on the waves of a chaotic ocean. Instead, you become the ocean itself. You realize that the universe is not doing things to you. It is expressing itself through you. Every event, no matter how it appears to your limited ego, is a perfect and necessary part of your soul's unfolding. A precisely calibrated lesson designed for your ultimate growth. To truly grasp this, let us turn to the beautiful Japanese art of kintsugi. In this practice, when a cherished piece of pottery is broken, it is not thrown away, nor is it repaired with invisible glue to hide the damage. Instead, the kintsugi master carefully gathers the shattered pieces and meticulously glues them back together using a special lacquer mixed with pure gold, silver, or platinum. The result is breathtaking. The bowl is not just repaired, it is transformed. The cracks are not hidden. They are illuminated, traced in precious metal, becoming the most beautiful feature of the piece. The bowl's history, its story of having been broken and healed, is now an integral part of its beauty. It is more valuable, more interesting, and more resilient than it was before it ever fell. You are that piece of pottery. Your life, in its ideal state, is that beautiful, a whole vessel. But life happens. There are shattering events. The loss of a loved one, a devastating business failure, a painful betrayal, a chronic illness. These are the moments that break us. Our conventional response is shame. We try to hide our cracks, to pretend we were never broken, to present a flawless facade to the world, or we simply throw ourselves away, believing we are irreparably damaged and worthless. Amor fati is the act of becoming your own kintsugi master. It is the spiritual art of looking at the shattered pieces of your past with love and patience. It is the practice of tracing your own scars, not with shame, but with the gold of wisdom. compassion, and understanding, you look at the failure that broke your heart and, instead of regret, you trace it with the gold of the lessons you learned, the resilience you forged, the new path it forced you onto. You look at a painful childhood wound and trace it with the gold of the compassion and empathy it taught you. Your wounds, your failures, your cracks cease to be sources of shame. They become the beautiful, golden veins that tell the unique and magnificent story of your becoming. They are what make you. And you. This is a practice you can apply right now. Think of a past event you deeply regret, one you wish you could go back and change. Hold it in your mind. Now, practice amor fati. Acknowledge the pain, but then begin to trace the golden lines. What strength did you gain from that experience? What did you learn about yourself or the world? What new doors did that closed door open? Perhaps years later, keep tracing until you can honestly look at that event and say, "Thank you. You were a harsh teacher, but you were a necessary part of my journey. I love you for what you gave me." This is the alchemy that turns the lead of your past into the gold of your present. This is the ultimate act of perspectivism, the ultimate creative reframing of your own story. And it is only through the lens of amor fati that we can finally and joyfully face the demon of eternal recurrence. If you truly love your fate, if you see every moment of your life as a necessary and beautiful golden seam in the pottery of your soul, then the chance to relive it all is not a curse. It is the highest blessing imaginable. It is the universe offering you the chance to experience your own beloved masterpiece again and again. For all eternity, the thought no longer brings terror. It brings a profound sense of peace and gratitude. You have created a life you are willing to affirm, totally and unconditionally. You have passed the ultimate test. This state of being, this profound love affair with reality, requires an immense inner strength and a deep connection to the self. It is a state of grace that is very difficult to find, let alone maintain. Amidst the noise, the demands, and the distractions of the modern world, the constant chatter of the marketplace, to cultivate this kind of radical acceptance and inner power, to truly hear the wisdom in our own wounds and find the gold within them, we often need to step away from the crowd. We need to create a space of silence, where we can listen to a voice deeper than the ego. We must discover the profound, generative power that awaits us in solitude. We have arrived at the profound and beautiful practice of amor fati, the love of one's fate. We have learned to embrace our entire life story, tracing our scars with the gold of wisdom and seeing the necessity in every joy and sorrow. But to practice this high art, to hear the subtle truths of our own lives and to find the strength to love our destiny, we cannot remain immersed in the deafening noise of the modern world. The soul's most delicate work cannot be done in a crowd. Nietzsche saw this with piercing clarity. He saw the modern world as a great, buzzing, chaotic marketplace. And for the friend of wisdom, the aspiring overman, he gave a simple, urgent command: flee, my friend, into your solitude. This command might sound jarring to our hyper-connected, socially saturated ears. We have been taught to fear being alone. We have conflated solitude with the pain of loneliness. But these two states are polar opposites. Loneliness is a poverty, a feeling of lack, a painful awareness of involuntary separation from others. It is the feeling of being an outcast. Solitude, on the other hand, is a richness. It is a deliberate, voluntary, and fulfilling state of being alone. It is not a disconnection from others, but a deep and profound connection with oneself. Loneliness is a punishment. Solitude is a sanctuary. The marketplace Nietzsche tells us to flee is not just a physical location. It is the entire ecosystem of modern distraction. It is the endless scroll of social media, with its petty dramas and curated illusions. It is the 24-hour news cycle, with its manufactured outrage and constant hum of anxiety. It is the endless demands of a career that asks for all of you, and the social obligations that require you to be constantly performing. The buzzing flies, as he called them, are the fleeting opinions of others, the gossip, the trends, the shallow judgments that sting and distract, draining your precious life force and pulling your attention away from the one thing that truly matters, the cultivation of your own soul. Why is this flight so necessary? Because the crowd, the herd, exerts a powerful gravitational pull. When we are constantly surrounded by others, we unconsciously begin to absorb their thoughts, feel their emotions, and adopt their values. We put on our masks. We play the part of the agreeable colleague, the witty friend, the responsible parent, the informed citizen. We become a composite of other people's expectations. Our authentic self, the quiet, true voice of our own spirit, gets buried deeper and deeper under these layers of social performance. Solitude is the sacred space where we can finally and safely take off all the masks. It is the great undressing of the soul. There, in the silence, there is no one to impress, no one to please, no one to perform for. There is only you, in all your glorious, messy, unedited truth. Solitude is the workshop of the spirit. It is the laboratory where you can conduct the experiments of self-discovery. It is here that you can truly practice amor fati, laying out the broken pieces of your past without fear of judgment, and patiently mending them with gold. It is here that you can finally hear what you actually think, as opposed to what you are supposed to think. It is here, in the stillness, that you can face the parts of yourself you have been avoiding, the shadows and fears that the noise of the world allows you to ignore. You can reconnect with your will to power, not as an abstract concept, but as a felt presence, a deep inner knowing that guides you toward growth. All the great prophets, mystics, artists, and thinkers throughout history have understood this. Moses climbed the mountain alone. The Buddha sat in silence under the Bodhi tree. Jesus spent 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. Thoreau went to Walden Pond, not to escape life, but to confront its essential facts. Nietzsche himself conceived his most world-changing ideas during long, solitary hikes in the Swiss Alps. They all knew that great truths are not found in the noisy consensus of the marketplace, but are whispered in the vast, intimidating silence of solitude. In our modern spiritual language, we might say that the universe, our higher self, our intuition, is always speaking to us. But its voice is not a shout. It is a whisper. It is the subtle gut feeling, the sudden flash of insight, the quiet sense of knowing. In the cacophony of daily life, this whisper is completely drowned out. Solitude is the simple, radical act of turning down the volume of the world so that you can finally hear the guidance that is always available. It is in these moments of quiet retreat that the solution to a problem you've been wrestling with for months suddenly appears. It is where your true purpose, hidden beneath layers of shoulds and have-tos, can finally make itself known. You do not need to retreat to a mountain cave for years to access this power. In our busy world, you can create pockets of sacred solitude. It can be as simple as waking up 30 minutes before the rest of your household to sit in silence with a cup of tea. With no phone, no television, no input. It can be taking a walk in a park on your lunch break, leaving your headphones behind. It can be the deliberate choice to turn off your phone for 2 hours every evening. It is the act of creating a small, inviolable sanctuary of silence in the midst of a noisy world. The duration is less important than the intention to be fully present with yourself. For yourself. But solitude is more than just a passive state of reflection or a place for healing. It is not an end in itself. It is a training ground. It is the place where you gather your strength, where you clarify your intentions, where you purify your will. And you do this for a very specific purpose. You are preparing yourself for the most important, ongoing activity of a life lived powerfully. In the sacred silence of solitude, you are not just learning to accept who you are. You are gathering the energy to become who you are not yet. You are preparing for the continuous, moment-to-moment practice of self-overcoming. We have sought refuge in the sacred sanctuary of solitude, learning to distinguish the true whispers of our soul from the buzzing flies of the marketplace. In that silence, we have reconnected with our inner authority, our will to power. But solitude is not a final destination. It is a training ground. It is the quiet space where we gather the strength for life's most essential and continuous activity, the very engine of growth and the signature of all living things. We must now explore the dynamic, active principle that gives purpose to our solitude and power to our will. We must learn the art of constant self-overcoming. Nietzsche declared with profound insight, "Wherever I found the living, there I found the will to overcome itself." This is a radical reframing of the purpose of life. We are taught to seek happiness, but we often define happiness as a state of rest, of comfort, of having finally arrived at a place with no problems. We imagine it as a peaceful, sunlit meadow where we can lie down and be free from all struggle. But for Nietzsche, this vision of happiness was a recipe for stagnation, the ideal of the last man. The joy he spoke of was not the passive contentment of the meadow, but the exhilarating, lung-burning joy of the mountain climber who has just pulled herself over a treacherous ledge. True, vibrant joy is not the absence of resistance, but the feeling of overcoming resistance. It is the felt sense of your own power increasing. Life is not a state of being, but a constant process of becoming. The core activity of this becoming is self-overcoming. To grasp the beauty and necessity of this process, we need only look to the metaphor of the butterfly. The caterpillar begins its life in the camel stage, its entire existence dedicated to a single, consuming task: eating and growing, following the simple "thou shalt" of its biological imperative. Then, it feels a deeper call. It retreats into the solitude of the chrysalis. And here, a terrifying and miraculous act of self-overcoming occurs. The caterpillar does not simply grow wings. It must completely dissolve itself, releasing enzymes that turn its entire body into a rich, chaotic, nutri soup. It must destroy its old identity, its old form, in an ultimate act of surrender to the process of transformation. From this primordial chaos, a new being is organized. But the struggle is not over. To emerge, the butterfly must fight its way out of the chrysalis. This struggle is not a design flaw. It is essential. The pressure of this fight is what pumps fluid into the veins of its wings, giving them the strength they need to fly. If a well-meaning human were to help the butterfly by cutting open the chrysalis, the butterfly would emerge with limp, useless wings. It would be a creature of the air that could never leave the ground. Its final, crucial act of self-overcoming would have been stolen from it, crippling it forever. The struggle is the source of the strength. The overcoming is the meaning of the process. This is the model for our own growth. We are, at every moment, either the caterpillar, the chrysalis, or the butterfly. Self-overcoming is the constant, deliberate practice of choosing to dissolve our weaker, more limited selves, and struggling to emerge as something stronger, freer, and more beautiful. This is not some grand, once-in-a-lifetime event. It is a daily, hourly discipline. When you choose the vigorous workout over the comfort of the couch, you are overcoming your body's inertia. When you push through that last, burning repetition at the gym, you are teaching your will that it is stronger than your physical discomfort. When you choose to sit with a difficult emotion like jealousy or anxiety instead of immediately numbing it with a distraction, you are overcoming your ingrained emotional patterns. When you choose to have that courageous, honest conversation you've been dreading, you are overcoming your fear of conflict. When you force your mind to focus on a challenging book instead of the easy dopamine hit of social media, you are overcoming your mental laziness. Every broken habit, every confronted fear, every new skill learned is a victory in the ongoing sacred war of self-overcoming. This is the will to power in action. The will is not a static thing to be possessed. It is a dynamic current that demands expression, and its primary expression is to ascend, to climb, to become more. This is why stagnation feels so much like depression. To cease growing is to go against the fundamental grain of life itself. The feeling of vitality, of being truly alive, is inextricably linked to the feeling of progress. The feeling that you are a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, a little bit freer today than you were yesterday. This is also the ultimate creative act. Many people think of finding themselves. Nietzsche would laugh at this. You do not find yourself as if you were a set of lost keys. You create yourself. You are, at once, the sculptor and the marble. Every act of self-overcoming is a deliberate strike of the chisel. You chip away the stone of your laziness, your limiting beliefs, your herd mentality conditioning, your fear-based habits. It is a slow and sometimes painful process, but with each chip of the chisel, the magnificent form within the stone is revealed. You are sculpting the Übermensch out of the raw material of your current self. This is your life's great work, your masterpiece. Now, as we dedicate ourselves to this constant, internal practice of growth, a new question arises. How does this ceaseless drive for self-overcoming affect the way we relate to others? A person on this path is a person in motion. They are constantly evolving, shedding old skins, and reaching for higher states of being. What kind of friendships can such a person have? Do they seek friends who will offer them comfort, who will validate them exactly as they are, and who will encourage them to stay in the safe, familiar meadow? Or does the soul of the mountain climber yearn for the companionship of a fellow climber? This leads us to consider a higher form of human connection, a relationship built not on mutual comfort, but on mutual aspiration. Nietzsche called this a star friendship. We are now engaged in the lifelong, sacred practice of self-overcoming, the dynamic art of creating ourselves anew. Moment by moment, we have become the sculptor and the marble, the artist of our own evolution. But this journey, while profoundly personal, is not meant to be lived in a vacuum. The soul, in its striving, yearns for connection, for witness, for companionship. But what kind of friendship is worthy of a spirit in constant motion? What kind of connection can support a soul that is dedicated to growth rather than comfort? Nietzsche invites us to lift our eyes from the marketplace of conventional relationships and gaze upward, towards a higher, more luminous ideal. He invites us to seek what he called a star friendship. Most of the relationships we call friendships are born of the marketplace. They are friendships of proximity, of shared history, of mutual convenience. We are friends with people because we work with them, or grew up with them, or because they share our tastes in movies and music. These are the friendships of the camel, where we find comfort in shared burdens and familiar routines. They are like comfortable armchairs, offering a place to rest, to be validated, to be told that we are fine just the way we are. And while there can be a certain warmth in this, the armchair friendship poses a subtle danger to the striving soul. It encourages stagnation. It is a friendship that, out of love or habit, often wants you to remain the person it has always known. Growth is change, and change can be threatening to the comfort of the familiar. A star friendship is an entirely different constellation. It is a friendship for the lion and the child within us. It is a connection based not on similarity and comfort, but on mutual admiration and a shared orientation towards a higher ideal. Star friends are not two halves seeking to become a whole. They are two whole, sovereign suns, each burning with its own fire, each following its own unique cosmic trajectory, who recognize and honor the light in each other. They share the same vast sky, a shared love for wisdom, for beauty, for truth, for human potential, but they do not need to orbit each other. Their bond is not based on the gravitational pull of neediness or codependency, but on the light they provide for one another across the vast silent expanse. You see the light of your star friend from afar, and it does not make you want to rush towards them. It inspires you to burn more brightly on your own path. This leads to one of Nietzsche's most challenging and beautiful insights on the nature of this higher connection in a friend. He wrote, "One should have one's best enemy." This is a startling phrase, but it holds a profound truth. Your best enemy is not someone who wishes you harm. On the contrary, it is the person who respects you too much to allow you to settle for your weaker self. They are the friend who, out of love, will challenge your lazy thinking. They will question your self-pitying stories. They will hold up a mirror to your rationalizations and excuses. They will not be an echo chamber for your ego, but a whetstone for your will. Their enmity is directed with surgical precision at the parts of you that are holding you back: your fear, your conformity, your inner camel. This kind of challenge is the highest expression of love. For it says, "I see the overman potential within you, and I will not let you betray that vision for the sake of comfort." Imagine two brilliant rival artists in the same city. They are both striving to create their masterpiece. They study each other's work intensely. They are fiercely competitive. But their competition is not born of petty jealousy, but of a shared devotion to their art. When one makes a breakthrough, it does not crush the other. It ignites a fire in them to push their own boundaries, to work harder, to dig deeper. They celebrate each other's triumphs because each success raises the standard of excellence for both of them. And for the art form they both love, they are each other's best enemy, constantly pushing one another towards greatness. This is a star friendship. Their true north is not each other, but the shared ideal of artistic perfection that hangs high above them both in the sky. Now, take a moment to look at your own life. Look at the people you call your friends. Which of them are armchairs? Which of them, if any, are stars? This is not an invitation to ruthlessly purge your life of all comfortable connections, but it is a call to become conscious of the energetic currents in your relationships. It is a call to actively seek out those rare souls who challenge you, who inspire you, who see your potential and demand that you live up to it. As the modern proverb says, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with comfort-seeking spirits, your own will to overcome will atrophy. If you surround yourself with fellow mountain climbers, you will find a new strength in your own legs, and the responsibility flows both ways. The ultimate challenge is not just to find a star friend, but to be one. Can you be the person who loves your friend enough to challenge their victim story? Can you celebrate their success without a trace of resentment? Can you encourage their growth, even if it means they grow in a direction that is different from your own? This requires a profound level of inner security and a complete absence of neediness. It is the ultimate expression of a generous and powerful spirit. To be capable of this kind of friendship, to be a star for others, and to be worthy of the light of another star, requires a specific kind of inner fortitude. It demands a resilience that can stand alone, that is not easily wounded by challenge, and that does not seek validation from outside itself. This kind of strength is not something we are born with. It cannot be bought or learned from a book. It must be forged. It is hammered into shape in the fires of adversity and cooled in the waters of experience. It is the hard-won prize of a life that has faced resistance and overcome it. This leads us to embrace one of Nietzsche's most famous and powerful declarations, the core principle of all spiritual resilience, the idea that what does not kill you truly does make you stronger. We have spoken of star friendships, those rare and luminous connections that challenge us to grow, but to be worthy of such a friendship, and indeed, to continue on the path of self-overcoming, We must possess a deep and abiding inner strength. We need a spiritual resilience that is not brittle, but flexible and powerful. A fortitude that can withstand the pressures of life and even use them to its advantage. This brings us to perhaps the most famous words Friedrich Nietzsche ever wrote. An aphorism so powerful, it has been tattooed on the skin of millions and quoted by everyone from pop stars to presidents. What does not kill me makes me stronger. This phrase has become such a cliché that it's profound. Alchemical power has been almost entirely bleached away. We say it casually to shrug off a minor inconvenience or a difficult day. But for Nietzsche, this was not a simple platitude to make us feel better. It was a description of a deliberate, active, and deeply courageous way of engaging with life. It is the core technology of resilience. The statement is not, "What doesn't kill me will automatically make me stronger." That is a dangerous falsehood. Suffering, hardship, and trauma can just as easily crush a person, leaving them weaker, more fearful, and more bitter. The world is full of people who have been broken by their experiences. The fire that forges steel can just as easily melt lead. The critical difference is the nature of the substance and the intention of the user. Nietzsche's formula is a call to become the steel, to actively use the fires of adversity as a forge for your own spirit. The makes me stronger part is not a passive guarantee. It is a conscious choice. The principle is encoded in the laws of biology and physiology. If you want to build a muscle, you cannot do it by sitting comfortably in a chair. You must go to the gym and subject that muscle to stress, to resistance. You must lift a weight so heavy that it creates microscopic tears in the muscle fibers. The pain you feel is a sign that the muscle is being challenged beyond its current capacity. It is in the process of healing these tears that the body overcompensates, rebuilding the muscle stronger and bigger than before. The resistance, the trauma to the muscle, is the very catalyst for its growth. Your immune system works the same way. It becomes stronger and more intelligent by encountering and defeating pathogens. A life lived in a sterile bubble creates a fragile, incomplete immune system. It is the encounter with that which threatens it that makes it more robust. Nietzsche simply applied this fundamental law of life to the soul. The practice of this philosophy lies in a radical shift of perspective, a change in the question you ask when crisis strikes. The spirit of the victim, the man of resentment, asks the powerless question, "Why is this happening to me?" This question casts you as the passive object of a cruel and random universe. It leads only to self-pity and despair. The spirit of the overman, the spiritual alchemist, asks a powerful and creative question. How is this for me? What is this trying to teach me? What strength is this adversity demanding that I build? This question instantly reframes the situation. You are no longer the victim. You are the student. The crisis is no longer a punishment. It is a personalized curriculum designed by the universe for your own evolution. The pain is no longer meaningless suffering. It is spiritual resistance training. Consider the story of the author J.K. Rowling. Before the global phenomenon of Harry Potter, she was a single mother, clinically depressed, living on government assistance. She wrote her manuscript in cafes, struggling to make ends meet. Once the book was finished, it was rejected by a dozen publishers. Each rejection was a blow. Each letter was a voice from the world telling her that her dream was worthless. This is the kind of adversity that kills many dreams. She could have succumbed to resentment, declaring the publishing industry to be foolish and the world unfair. She could have concluded her grapes were sour, but instead, she chose the path of the spiritual warrior. A reaction, while painful, did not kill her resolve. She used the resistance to forge a more unshakable belief in her own vision. The hardship was the fire that tempered her will into steel. Her eventual, unprecedented success was not achieved in spite of her suffering. It was made possible because of it. The strength she built during her years in the wilderness was the very foundation that allowed her to handle the immense pressures of global fame. She did not just survive her ordeal. She harnessed it. This is amor fati in its most practical, dynamic form. It is one thing to look back on a past tragedy from a position of safety and find the golden lessons in it. It is another thing entirely to stand in the heart of the fire and actively choose to see it as a forge. It is to trust, in the midst of pain and uncertainty, that the universe is not conspiring against you, but conspiring for your growth. It is to know that the thing that is breaking your heart is also the thing that is breaking your heart open. It is to see the curse as a crucible. In our modern culture, we are obsessed with avoiding pain, with creating safe spaces to protect us from all discomfort. We seek lives of ease and predictability. But from a Nietzschean perspective, a life without adversity is a life without the opportunity for real growth. A soul that is never tested, never challenged, never forced to overcome resistance, becomes a weak and brittle thing. We are not meant to be hothouse flowers, shielded from every wind. We are meant to be mountain oaks. Our strength and character defined by the storms we have endured. The strength forged in these fires is real. It is a deep, quiet confidence that is not dependent on external validation. It is the knowledge that you have been tested and you have not broken. This resilience, this hard-won power, is what makes a star friendship possible. It is what allows you to stand on your own 2 feet and meet another powerful soul as an equal. But this strength also prepares you for another, even more perilous journey. It gives you the courage to stop looking only at the monsters in the outside world and to turn your gaze inward, to the abyss of your own psyche. It prepares you to fight the most dangerous monsters of all. But for those who choose this path, Nietzsche offers a grave and solemn warning. We have committed ourselves to a life of self-overcoming, of forging our strength in the very fires of adversity. We have sought out star friendships to challenge us and have learned to stand in the empowering sanctuary of our own solitude. This path has endowed us with a newfound resilience, a courage that allows us to face difficulties that would have once sent us fleeing. With this strength, we are now equipped to turn our gaze towards the most formidable challenges of all the monsters that lurk both within us and in the world, and the vast, silent abyss of our own inner depths. But it is here, at this critical juncture, that Nietzsche issues his most solemn and urgent warning, a caution for every spiritual warrior who dares to tread this path. He says, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." Let us first confront these monsters. A monster is any great and powerful force that stands in opposition to life, freedom, and growth. It can be an external monster, like a corrupt system, a dogmatic ideology, or a toxic family dynamic. Or it can be an internal monster, like a crippling addiction, a deep-seated trauma, or a pattern of self-sabotage. The noble spirit, the lion within us, sees these monsters and feels the righteous urge to fight them. But this battle is fraught with a subtle and terrible danger. The danger is that in your long, arduous war against the monster, you begin to resemble it. The process happens through obsession. You focus all your energy on what you despise. Your thoughts become consumed by the monster's tactics, its arguments, its very essence. To fight a hateful ideology, you become filled with a burning hatred for its followers. To fight a manipulative system, you begin to adopt manipulative tactics of your own. Your energy begins to resonate at the same low frequency as the thing you are trying to destroy. You become so defined by your enemy that, without it, you would have no identity left. You set out to slay the dragon, but you spend so long in its lair that your own skin begins to grow scales. Imagine a young, idealistic activist. Let's call him Alex. Alex begins his journey with a heart full of love, a deep compassion for the oppressed, and a burning desire for a more just and equitable world. This is a noble starting point. He fights his monster, let's say it's corporate greed, with passion and integrity. But years go by, and he is met with cynicism, resistance, and powerful opposition. His righteous anger slowly curdles into a bitter, all-consuming hatred. He begins to see corporate executives not as flawed human beings, but as inhuman demons. He begins to speak with the same dogmatism and intolerance as the systems he decries. He started his journey to fight the monster of dehumanization. But in the process, he has begun to dehumanize his opponents. He has become a mirror image of what he despises. A monster of hatred, fighting a monster of greed. He has lost the very thing that made his quest noble in the first place, his love for humanity. This leads us to the second, even more profound part of Nietzsche's warning. And when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. What is this abyss? It is the great void that opens up with the death of God. It is the terrifying realization of life's potential meaninglessness. It is the darkness that resides in the human heart. The capacity for cruelty, despair, and nihilism. In modern psychological terms, it is the shadow self, the unlit basement of our psyche where we have stored all of our repressed fears, shames, and monstrous desire. To be a whole and self-aware person, you must gaze into this abyss. You must be willing to face your own shadow, to know your own capacity for darkness. This is a necessary part of the journey. But the danger is that the abyss has a gravity of its own. For the abyss to gaze back means that its perspective can begin to infect yours. If you stare at meaninglessness for too long without an anchor, you can become a nihilist, believing that nothing matters. If you spend too much time excavating your own traumas and darkness without a strong sense of self, you can become identified with your wounds, believing that you are your brokenness. The abyss will whisper to you that all is hopeless, that all striving is pointless, that all creation is doomed to decay. And if your soul is not properly anchored, you will begin to believe it. You will be consumed by the very darkness you sought to understand. How, then, do we navigate these perilous waters? How do we fight monsters without becoming them, and gaze into the abyss without falling? We need an anchor. We need a lifeline back to the world of light, form, and meaning. This is where the wisdom of the Apollonian spirit comes to our aid. The abyss is pure, formless, chaotic Dionysus. To explore it safely, you need a strong Apollonian container, a solid sense of self, a rational mind that can observe the chaos without dissolving into it. And most importantly, a clear and unwavering purpose. Your purpose is your lifeline. It is the reason you are fighting the monster in the first place. If you are fighting simply out of hatred, the monster has already won. But if you are fighting for a cause that you love, for justice, for truth, for beauty, and for the creation of a better world, then that love will be the light that guides you through the darkness. It will be the anchor that holds you steady. When the abyss gazes into you, it reminds you what you are for, not just what you are against. So, the ultimate defense against the dangers of the journey is not to avoid the monsters or the abyss, but to cultivate a purpose so profound, so life-affirming, and so deeply loved, that it becomes an unshakable core of your being. This raises the most practical and pressing question of all for the spiritual warrior. If a powerful purpose is the key to our survival and our sanity, how do we find one? How do we cultivate a why that is strong enough to withstand the fight? This leads us to another of Nietzsche's most vital insights. A simple statement that holds the key to all human endurance and resilience. We have stood at the precipice, staring into the abyss of our own soul and facing the monsters that lurk within and without. We have understood Nietzsche's chilling warning that in this fight, we risk becoming the very thing we hate. And that in this gaze, we risk being consumed by the darkness. This is the great peril of the spiritual journey. So what is the lifeline? What is the anchor that holds us steady when the abyss gazes back? What is the light that guides us when we are surrounded by monsters? Nietzsche gives us the answer in a single, powerful sentence. An axiom later validated in the most horrific circumstances imaginable by the psychologist Viktor Frankl. It is the master key to human resilience. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. This is the ultimate organizing principle for a life of power and meaning. It distinguishes the striving overman from the drifting soul who is tossed about by every wave of fortune. The how of our lives is the collection of circumstances, the challenges, the difficulties, the suffering. It is the demanding job, the painful illness, the difficult relationship, the lonely struggle. For a person without a why, these hows are the entirety of their reality. They are seen as meaningless torments, unjust punishments from a cruel universe. Life becomes a grim exercise in enduring one how after another. And the soul, seeing no greater purpose in its suffering, collapses into despair or resentment. But the moment you discover your why, the entire equation of your life changes. Your why is your ultimate purpose, your highest value, your North Star. It is not a mere goal. Like getting a promotion or buying a house, a goal is a destination, but a why is a direction. It is the answer to the question, for what sake am I doing all of this? It is the vision of the person you are striving to become, the contribution you are yearning to make, the ideal you are serving. With a powerful why firmly established in your heart, the hows of your life are radically transformed. They are no longer meaningless obstacles. They become the necessary path. The challenges are no longer curses. They are the very resistance that forges your strength. The suffering is no longer pointless. It is the price of admission for a worthy cause. Your why provides a context that imbues every how with meaning. Let us imagine the life of a single mother. Maria. The hows of her life are brutal. She works two physically demanding, low-wage jobs, leaving before her child wakes and returning after he is asleep. She survives on 4 hours of sleep. Her body aches with exhaustion, and her heart aches with loneliness. If you were to look only at the hows, her life would seem an unbearable tragedy. But Maria has a why. A why so powerful, it shines like a sun in the center of her being. She is doing all of this to give her son a future she never had, to ensure he has the opportunities, the education, and the stability to realize his own dreams. This why transforms everything. The grueling work is no longer just labor. It is an act of fierce, maternal love. The exhaustion is not just fatigue. It is a testament to her devotion. The sacrifice is not a loss. It is an investment in the person she loves most in the world. Her why is so strong, so pure, that it makes almost any how not only bearable, but noble. She is not a victim of her life. She is the hero of her story. So how do you find this anchor for your own soul? A why is rarely discovered by sitting in a chair and thinking about it. It is often revealed through action, through self-interrogation, through life itself. But you can begin the process by asking yourself the right questions. Ask yourself, what makes you truly angry about the world? What injustice ignites a fire in you? Within that anger is often a deep love for its opposite, and a powerful why related to creating it. Ask yourself, what brings you a sense of deep, timeless joy? What activity makes you feel so absorbed, so aligned, that you would do it for free, simply for the love of the doing? This is the why of the creative child. Ask yourself, what great pain or struggle have you overcome in your own past? Often, our deepest purpose is found in turning our greatest wounds into our greatest gifts, in helping others navigate the very wilderness we have just survived. Your why is the thread that connects your deepest love, your greatest joy, and your most profound pain. When you live from this place, you are no longer living a what-driven life, but a why-driven one. A life focused on what is a life of accumulating external things, possessions, accolades, job titles. These things are precarious. They can be lost or taken away, leaving you with a sense of emptiness. But a why is internal. It is a source of meaning and motivation that no one can ever take from you. It provides a strength that is independent of circumstance. It is the engine that drives your self-overcoming. The reason you get back up after you have been knocked down. The discipline that fuels you when motivation fades. This is the ultimate anchor for the spiritual warrior. It is your why that allows you to fight monsters without becoming one. Because you remember you are fighting for something beautiful, not just against something ugly. It is your why that allows you to gaze into the abyss without falling. Because your purpose acts as a gravitational force, pulling you back towards the light of meaning. The overman is, above all else, the being who creates their own meaning and lives in service to it. But a powerful purpose, a noble why, needs a worthy vessel. A grand mission requires a strong and resilient instrument to carry it out in the world. Your mind can be forged in steel. Your spirit can be aimed at the stars. But that purpose must be enacted through the flesh and bone of your physical being. To truly bear anyhow, we must not only train our minds, we must learn to inhabit and honor the profound, instinctual wisdom of the one thing that carries us through every moment of our journey, the body. Throughout our journey, we have ventured into the highest altitudes of the spirit and the deepest abysses of the soul. We have learned to create our own values, to fight our own monsters, and to love our own fate. We have pursued the path of self-overcoming, but in all this talk of the spirit, the will, and the mind, there is a danger that we fall back into one of the oldest and most destructive traps of Western thought, the separation of the mind from the body. For millennia, our philosophies and religions have taught us a profound distrust of our physical selves. The body has been cast as a dumb beast, a prison for the soul, a source of sinful temptation that the higher, rational mind must conquer and control. We have been taught to live in our heads, treating our bodies as mere vehicles, inconvenient luggage that we must drag around to carry our precious brains. Nietzsche saw this schism as a catastrophic error, a lie that has cost us our vitality, our wisdom, and our connection to life itself. He came to deliver a revolutionary message: the body is not the prison of the soul. It is its temple. In fact, he went further. He declared that the body is the great reason, and the conscious mind, the ego we are so proud of, is merely its instrument, its little reason. This is a radical inversion of our entire tradition. We believe our conscious mind is the captain of the ship. Nietzsche tells us it is merely the lookout in the crow's nest, scanning the horizon, while the true captain is the vast, intelligent, and ancient wisdom of the body itself. Your soul, he said, is just a word for something about your body. The body is a far more profound and complex intelligence than the tiny sliver of consciousness we call it. It is a vast ecosystem of information, a living history of your ancestry, a direct conduit to the instinctual wisdom of the earth. Its language is not the linear, logical language of words, but the rich, symbolic language of sensation, feeling, and impulse. And we, in our modern world, have become almost completely deaf to it. We are taught to suppress the body's signals. When we get a gut feeling about a person or a situation, a deep, primal sense of unease or rightness that emanates from our core, what do? We rationalize it away. Our little reason says, "Don't be silly. They seem perfectly nice." Or, "The data on this business deal looks good. You're just being nervous." We ignore the profound wisdom of our enteric nervous system, our second brain, which is processing millions of bits of environmental data that our conscious mind never even registers. When we feel tension building in our shoulders or a knot forming in our stomach, we treat it as a malfunction. We pop a pill or try to ignore it, instead of pausing to ask the crucial question: what is my body trying to tell me? What situation, what thought pattern is causing my body to scream no in the only language it has? We have been taught that pleasure is a dangerous indulgence to be disciplined, and pain is an enemy to be silenced. But for Nietzsche, these are the body's primary signals. Pleasure is the body's yes. Its signal that an experience is life-affirming and expansive. Pain is its no. A vital message that a limit has been crossed or a change is needed. To learn the language of your body is to gain access to a source of wisdom far older and more reliable than your chattering, conditioned mind. Imagine a high-powered CEO. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus lives entirely in his head. His life is a series of strategic plans, financial models, and back-to-back meetings. His body is an inconvenience. He fuels it with coffee and takeout, ignores his chronic indigestion, and works through the constant, dull ache in his lower back. He believes his mind is his greatest asset. Eventually, his body rebels in the only way it can. It shuts down. He collapses from severe burnout. His doctor, a wise practitioner, prescribes something radical, not a new medication or another therapist, but a mandatory 2-week solo hiking trip. With his phone turned off, Marcus is furious, but desperate enough to try. The first few days are agony. His mind races. He craves distraction, but as he walks, he has no choice but to inhabit his body. He feels the ache in his calves, the bite of the wind, the warmth of the sun. He starts to notice the rhythm of his own breathing. He is no longer thinking about the world. He is in it. One afternoon, sitting by a stream, he thinks about a major merger. His company is planning by dot. All the data supports it. It's a no-brainer. But as he visualizes signing the papers, a cold, hard knot forms in his gut. His body is screaming, no, for the first time. He listens. He returns to the office, cancels the deal against the advice of his entire board. And a few months later, the other company is exposed for massive fraud. A disaster that would have destroyed Marcus's company. He learns the most valuable lesson of his career. His body's great reason was infinitely wiser than his mind's little reason. This wisdom of honoring the body is not new. Though Nietzsche gave it a new philosophical force, it is the heart of ancient practices like yoga, which seeks to unify the mind, body, and breath into a single, harmonious intelligence. It is the foundation of modern somatic therapies, which understand that trauma is not just a mental event, but is stored in the body's tissues and can only be released through the body. It is the essence of mindfulness, meditation, which trains us to pay gentle, non-judgmental attention to the river of physical sensations that make up our present moment experience. When you honor your body, you are honoring your life. The choice to nourish it with healthy food, to move it with joy, to give it the deep rest it requires, is not an act of vanity. It is a profound spiritual practice. It is the act of tending to the sacred temple that houses your will to power, ensuring that your instrument is finely tuned for the magnificent music you are here to create. As we journey towards this integration, we begin to heal the great schism within us. The mind is no longer a tyrant and the body no longer a slave. They become partners in the dance of life, each respecting and listening to the other's wisdom. We stop living as disembodied heads, and we start living as fully embodied, whole human beings. When we arrive at this state of integration, where our mind's clarity, our body's wisdom, our heart's passion, and our life's purpose are all aligned and flowing in the same direction, something magical happens. Our life ceases to feel like a series of fragmented, chaotic events. A deeper coherence emerges. A narrative thread becomes visible, and we realize that we are not just living a life. We are composing one. The ultimate act of the integrated self is to see one's own life as one's greatest creation, to live it, shape it, and polish it until it becomes a work of art. We have come to the culmination of our transformative journey. We have stood in the creative abyss left by the death of God. We have harnessed the life-affirming energy of the will to power. We have danced between the poles of Apollo and Dionysus, And we have learned to overcome ourselves. We have faced the poison of resentment, embraced the eternal weight of our choices, and learned to love our fate with the golden artistry of amor fati. We have fled to the sanctuary of solitude and honored the profound wisdom of our own bodies. We have gathered all the tools. We have assembled all the powers of the spirit. And now we must ask the final question of the main part of our journey. To what end? What is the ultimate purpose of all this inner work? This striving, this becoming. The answer is the most glorious project a human being can undertake. The purpose is to stop merely living a life, and to start with deliberation and passion. Composing one. The final aim is to become the poet of your own life. Think of the greatest artists you admire. A sculptor does not see a random block of marble. They see the potential form sleeping within it. A composer does not hear a random collection of notes. They perceive a symphony waiting to be born. They approach their raw material not as something to be passively accepted, but as something to be shaped, molded, and imbued with meaning, beauty, and intention. Nietzsche's finale. Radical invitation is for you to see your own life as your block of marble. Your symphony, your epic poem, your life experiences, the chaotic, the joyful, the mundane, the painful are the raw materials, your personality, your talents, your flaws. They are the words and the notes. The task of the overman, the task of the fully realized human being, is to take all of this raw, and sometimes messy, material and consciously shape it into a magnificent work of art. You must become the poet of your life. A poet does not simply record events. They find the rhythm in suffering, the rhyme between seemingly disconnected moments of joy, the meter and cadence of their own story. They select which images to emphasize, which feelings to give voice to. They transform the raw prose of existence into the resonant music of poetry. This is your task now. It is the grand synthesis of everything we have learned. Your power of perspectivism is your poetic license. Your ability to choose the emotional color and tone of every line. Your mastery of Apollo and Dionysus is your sense of form and inspiration. The structure of the stanza and the wildfire of the feeling it contains. Your practice of amor fati is your ultimate editing tool. The kintsugi art of taking the parts of the poem that feel broken or out of place and making them the most luminous and meaningful verses of all. Your discipline of self-overcoming is the endless redrafting, the constant refinement of your craft, the commitment to making each verse stronger and more true than the last. Look at the life of any person you truly admire, any great figure from history or your own life. Their biography is never a straight, clean line. It is filled with contradictions, failure, painful detours, and moments of profound doubt. It is a messy, human story, but when you view their life as a whole, a narrative emerges. You see a theme, you see a purpose, you see a character arc. You see a complex and beautiful tapestry woven from threads of both darkness and light. What you are seeing is a life that, whether consciously or unconsciously, was lived as a work of art. You are now called to become both the protagonist and the author of your own great story, to live in such a way that if a biography were written of your life, it would be a story of courage, of growth, of authenticity. A story that would inspire its reader to live more fully. This is the final, triumphant answer to the test of the eternal recurrence. Why would a soul joyfully choose to relive its life for all eternity? Because a great artist never tires of their own masterpiece. They see its flaws, its struggles, its imperfections. But they love it because it is a true and authentic expression of their deepest self. The chance to experience that creation again, to feel the thrill of its composition, to live within that beauty, is the greatest imaginable gift. When you live your life as a work of art, you are creating the one thing in the universe you would want to have last forever. You solve the existential problem not by finding an answer, but by creating one, And here is the final, most profound realization of all. In this great, creative project, you are not just the artist. You are yourself. The art, the marble being sculpted is your own character. The poem being written is your own soul. Every choice you make, every thought you cultivate, every action you take is a brushstroke on the canvas of your being. The ultimate goal is not to create something outside of yourself, but to sculpt yourself into a person whose very existence is a statement of power, beauty, and meaning. It is to become a walking, breathing work of art. It is to live in such a way that your life itself becomes a gift to the world, an inspiration, a testament to the highest possibilities of the human spirit. You have journeyed through the desert with the camel. You have fought the dragon with the lion. And you have learned to play with the child. You have gathered the strength, claimed the freedom, and awakened the creative innocence necessary for this grand work. The workshop is ready. The tools are in your hands. The raw material is the precious, unrepeatable stuff of your own life. The time has now come to begin your masterpiece. We have traveled a great and arduous road together. A journey into the very heart of what it means to be human in a world without easy answers. We began in the disquiet of the modern soul, adrift in a sea of shallow affirmations. We stood bravely in the abyss left by the death of external gods. And instead of falling, we found the infinite space of creation. We felt the stirring of the will to power within us, and we followed its path of transformation. From the dutiful camel to the rebellious lion, and finally, to the creative, joyful child, we learned to see the world through our own eyes, to balance the chaos of our passions with the beauty of order, and to forge our own values beyond the inherited notions of good and evil. We confronted the poison of victimhood, and we found the ultimate antidote in the love of our own fate, the sacred art of amor fati. We have arrived, at last, at the understanding that our life is not something to be endured, but something to be composed. Our one great work of art. If you take only one thing from our time together, let it be this. Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy is not a descent into the darkness of nihilism. It is the most radical and powerful affirmation of life ever conceived. It is a philosophy for the strong, and for those who wish to be strong. It teaches us that peace is not the absence of the storm, but the ability to dance within it. That strength is not found by avoiding hardship, but by forging ourselves in its very fire, and that the chaos we feel within us, the wild, unpredictable, Dionysian energy we have been taught to fear, is not a flaw to be corrected. It is the sacred, fertile source of our creativity, our passion, and our genius. Your chaos is not your enemy. It is your power. So now, you are no longer the seeker of answers. You are the creator of them. You hold the tools in your own hands. The next time you face a challenge, a heartbreak, or a moment of doubt, do not ask the powerless question, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask the question of the overman, "Who can I become because of this?" Take up the philosopher's hammer that Nietzsche spoke of, not as a weapon of blind destruction, but as a tuning fork. Tap it gently against the idols in your own life, the beliefs and values you have held without question. And listen. If they ring hollow, have the courage to let them fall. If they ring true, then embrace them with your whole being. Go forth and become the poet of your life. Live with such authenticity, such courage, and such love for your own fate, that you would joyfully welcome the chance to live this very life. For all of eternity, your great adventure has just begun.